And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the interview room on this Sunday evening. We hope you're doing well. As you can tell, the panel's back. Above me, John Lamb, former homicide guy.
Good evening.
In the upper right-hand corner, Bob Gilliam, former Under Sheriff, also a homicide guy. And of course, to the right of me, Dr. Gary Brucato, forensic psychologist extraordinaire. If you're new to us, we're grateful that you're here. We ask one thing and one thing only. That's you hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Let's see where you're from. Tell us where you're from in the chat. We've got all kinds of people from around the world. Welcome from the UK. I love this little opener twist here. East Texas, Michigan, Washington, Mojave Desert, whoa, Pennsylvania, Livermore, Ireland, Kansas City, man, Victoria, Encinitas, Chacarrata, Ontario, Dallas, Oregon, wow, New Jersey. It just keeps going. We are so grateful to each and every one of you for trusting us with your time and, of course, spending it with us here on a Sunday evening. It doesn't get any better than that. It really doesn't. So, that said, John, Bob, Gary, how have you guys been?
Been great.
You doing well?
Very well.
Doing great.
Yep. Any
gorgeous day. Spring is here for now.
How's your pup? How's your pup doing, John?
My pup is doing fine. He's actually laying here at my feet.
Okay.
And, I bribe him periodically with peanut butter treats. So it's not that he lays next to me because of affection. It's that I bribe him frequently.
I've got Buddy right here as well. So those of you who are new, Bob's got a golden retriever, or excuse me, John's got a golden retriever, and Buddy's a little Jack Russell Terrier. So you'll see him behind me on his little bed back there. Bob, how's the fly rods going?
Hey, they're getting warmed up for sure.
Awesome.
It was 65 degrees here today in Boise, and definitely doesn't feel like March.
Oh man, aren't you supposed to be filled with snow still right now?
Well, we should have had a lot more snow than we've had, and I think we've had maybe 2 inches overall this season, and it's just it's crazy. Fortunately, the mountains are early on in the season got quite a bit of snow, so we should be okay. But
so the river should kick up.
Hopefully, yeah.
Awesome. And Gary, how's everything going in Manhattan? Any more serial killers leaving pizza boxes near your office?
Well, it was unseasonably warm. And to be honest, I think there's a kind of tension in the air because we in New York, I think, are very worried about the possibility of terrorism because of what's going on in the Middle East. And I don't think it's a crazy thing to be concerned about it. So there's just a little sort of unspoken tension in the air of people being a little extra nervous. You guys think that's unfounded?
No, it's totally understandable.
Yeah,
Considering they threw a couple of a handmade grenade. No, I don't think that's an unreasonable.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So there is a little of that. But putting that over here, it's a beautiful day. It's feels like spring is in the air. I could do without losing the hour of sleep. But other than that, this case, Chris, it just every time you turn the news on, there's some new out of left field thing. Your head's going around like Linda Blair and The Exorcist. It doesn't, because like I woke up today and there were like all these new a utility box that they found toyed with, the question of the jammer, it's like every minute, so I'm sure we have a lot to dissect.
We do. And I'm glad you brought that up. And it's also a special day for women. What is today?
That's true. It's International Women's Day, I think.
Says four guys on a panel, and Karen is in the back laughing. But congratulations to all of our moms and females out there. We are so grateful to each and every one of you. And without moms, none of us would be here. So for that, I'm grateful. I had a great mom.
Well, Chris, is your audience mostly female?
Yes, actually, almost the demographics for the interview room are almost 90%.
Wow.
Yes, I think it's because women have been disproportionately affected by crime. Yeah. So they wind up, a lot of them have a strong interest in it, even to understand how to avoid getting caught up in it.
Well, they're smarter than us too. I mean, let's face it, right?
Well, there's that, yeah.
I mean, I think if a guy doesn't admit the fact that, number one, women have a natural instinct when it comes to just even picking on, just going, that guy's not right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and I know Joyce had the same feelings, John. I mean, John's wife was an amazing human being, and she managed a lot of different things. And, as a investigative, analyst. And long story short, but she would come to us and just drop things on the desk and say, here's your guy. And you'd be like, what? Wait a minute. Where'd you get all this? And she goes, trust me, just chase it.
Yeah. Sometimes she had sources she couldn't reveal, but she could get into computer systems, and she had an incredible ability to link. And in the old days, for anybody who's seen the old television show Numbers, the crime analysis, the link analysis is what she did. And she could put stuff together and walk in and go, and she could actually give you a trail of, this is your guy because this is his girlfriend, and his girlfriend lists this person as loaning the car. And it was like going through a labyrinth. But she was, always correct. And in fact, she was the first one, if you'll remember the Margaret Yosa case.
Yosa case, yeah.
And
which is interesting. It's a lot like this case too.
It is. The details on that were, if you want me to give the 30 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead. Run it down, Joe.
Margaret Yosa was in her, I want to say, late 60s, and she lived in Oceanside, and she went to a Ralph's supermarket, which is nationally part of the Kroger chain. And she went to the market and apparently was abducted from there. Yep. With a report, the officers took a missing persons report when the family said that she did not show up. And that morning, Joyce got the reports first and instantly pegged on this report and came to me and said, there's something wrong here, because she on her own called the family and said, has she come back? Well, no, she hasn't. And we immediately deployed, the detectives down to the area. We found her car. Sadly, she wasn't found for, I want to say it was almost a year.
Yeah.
But
in Carlsbad.
but Joyce was the one that pegged on that, and she didn't wear a badge and she didn't carry a gun, but she was as superb an investigator as you were going to find. And in her spare time, she was also a fingerprint expert. So I was so lucky to have her with me. And then later, when I began writing books, she was this amazing proofreader. And the Ralph's in Oceanside on Oceanside Boulevard is
Right there at the I-5 and the Boulevard.
Yeah, right there at I-5 and the Boulevard. International Women's Day, we've worked with some amazing women, and I had the enormous luck that I married up and married an absolutely brilliant woman who, for reasons that I still can't figure out, adored me and wanted to be with me.
Well, that's because no dogs would play with you.
That's true. Well, they will if I wear a pork chop around my neck.
That's what we love about John. All right. Well, today, here we are, day 36, in the search for Miss Nancy Guthrie.
It would have been more disturbing if he said lamb chop, given his last name.
Ooh. Whoa.
I feel I'm sure that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that was cringy.
Oh my gosh, that's right out of left field. I felt the chill from that over here. Okay, so here we are, day 36. And there have been no arrests, no suspects, no publicly named suspects, and Nancy's still remains missing despite 3,000 tips received. The key developments recently is multiple ransom notes demanding Bitcoin, which investigators are analyzing, but have not led to any breakthroughs. The FBI released photos and footage of the alleged abductor, but these have not yet also yielded any identification. A glove found near the home, and I'm just giving everybody a recap again, and then we'll get cooking on the new stuff. A glove found near the home was DNA tested and linked to an unrelated restaurant worker. Anybody think that in any way, shape, or form was going to come around anyway, right? I mean, Bob, you talked about hundreds of gloves, during the search and rescue, folks that could have been dropped. But right. This one turns out to be a restaurant worker apparently nearby where the glove was dropped. So that's off the plate. A woman's body was discovered in a Phoenix canal March 7th, and that she has been confirmed unrelated to the case. Recent investigations have focused and shift to the potential use of a Wi-Fi, as Gary mentioned, or signal jammer by a possible suspect. There's been a lot of thought in relationship to, is there something in his clothing, in his pockets, etc., which may have been disrupting neighborhood internet and security cameras during the abduction, and we're going to get into that. I've talked to some technical folks, and there's some really interesting things about that. Neighbors were re-interviewed this week about outages the night of January 31st. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano stated on March 3rd, the investigators are, quote, definitely closer to solving the case, with federal agents now probing the jammer theory and other leads. The family has offered a private $1 million reward additional to the $100,000 for information leading to her safe return. And let's see here. Savannah Guthrie, who's been on leave, visited the Today Show off camera on March 6th and plans to return to on the show soon. Amid ongoing family pleas for her mother's return, she continues to put Instagram post up. The case has drawn obviously significant media attention around the world, highlighting challenges in missing persons investigations, especially for elderly victims, and the emotional tolls that it takes on family. The interesting thing about Savannah's recent, plea to the abductors is they have also made a donation to the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So we've gone through the timeline of events. We've hit that pretty extensively. We've talked about family cars, which is still being held. They have not been released as of even today. And what makes this case stand out is apparently this abduction was, so rare that even Dr. Brucato didn't have statistics on it, with over 119 years worth of data. So this is going to really be an interesting thing. So the investigative developments, or let me ask you this, what role have the ransom notes and Bitcoins played so far in your opinions, and how do they compare to the certain similar elements in other high-profile investigations? Do you guys, either one of you, have an opinion in relationship to whether this Bitcoin thing is even in play? And I'll throw that up to Bob first, and we'll start there.
Yeah, I don't think the Bitcoin is in play. It's been hokey from the very get-go, in my opinion, and it seems to me that the Bitcoin and the demand notes being sent to the news media and to TMZ, they were just people trying to scam the money from this case. So I don't think they're in play at all.
What say you, John?
I got to agree with Bob. I mean, there's a slight chance that it was a deliberate red herring introduced into it. I tend to think that's a diminishing possibility. I think it's outside opportunists, or either hoping to turn a buck, or just because there are miserable, evil people in the world that like to play games and really sort of double down on the tragedy.
Right.
Gary?
Well, but I think it's important for us not to forget how puzzling the communications were between the guy in Hawthorne and family members, that I have still not been satisfied about why it appears that there was that the communication that's in the affidavit is suggestive of prior communication. It references some financial arrangement that isn't referenced anywhere else in the messages. Now, that is not meant to cast aspersions. It's just one of those things that you sort of dog ear and you go like, that doesn't make sense. And I think we've all agreed that guy, I think Derek, is that his name? Derek Kalela
or something. Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense. And I am not thrilled about not being able to put that to rest. It's weird to me. The other thing is, with regard to comparing to other cases, I have found that the cases that are out there, they mostly have to do with group enterprise things like mafia, kidnaps, things like that, cartels and all that. But I don't think that that's what went on here. What it looks like is that it is true. I think we all agree there is some group of people, not just one solo person. It does appear that way, with different psychologies and intelligence levels and all that. But what it looks like is that whoever is, as I've called the waiter, whoever's doing the service of the idea, there does seem to be some mimicking of things that come from, cartels or mafiosi or things like that, with this attempt at abduction. Wouldn't you say it looks almost like somebody watched too many TV shows where there was that kind of abduction, and tried to learn about how criminals operate? Don't you guys think? What do you guys think about that? That there's some mimicking.
John?
Yeah,
I agree. There's a component to this that strikes me as almost theatric, and having dealt with the criminals that we mostly dealt with, we seldom saw crimes of this variety. This sort of, I won't call it staging, but there's an artificial component to it. So
Little
I agree with you, Gary.
handed and it looks a little over the top, and yeah.
Yes. And I think it's almost as if the people involved in this imagine themselves to be a brain trust, and that they have, tried to come up with various ways to confound the police. And I mean, in fairness to them, they have gotten away with it thus far.
Right.
Yeah. So the next piece here that I want to talk about, or just ask a question here, there have been over 3,000 tips, but no arrest. Let's give our audience an understanding of what exactly that means, and what are the obstacles about filtering out and pursuing leads. I mean, John, you ran a team, so how do we explain that to the public?
I think by virtue of the example of the Leticia Hernandez case, which attracted national attention, and we were getting enormous, and you know this, Chris, the enormous numbers of tips, and every one of them needs to be tracked down, because you don't know in advance. Even if something sounds ludicrous, you still need to track it down. So we were, tracking down reports of sightings in one of the rest stops on Interstate 8 in Imperial County, and then supposedly Fort Lauderdale, and up and down the length of Interstate 10. And these tips are being phoned in by well-meaning people who are trying to help. And so you end up with a massive amount of chaff. You're actually, the line is looking for needle in a haystack. You're actually looking for a needle in a haystack of needles, because they all need to be checked out. Unfortunately, many of them are just well-meaning people offering information that proves to be incorrect.
Yeah. And Bob, do you want to dovetail into that, if in any way?
Yeah, I agree. But, most of the tips you receive are from well-meaning people. Occasionally you get people that want to inject themselves into the case, so they come up with some bizarre theory that they want you to follow up on. But though that's not the norm. One of the things, just for the audience, one of the ways that we used to vet tips, and I'll bring up the Chris, you remember the Julia Hernandez case that we did an episode of your show on, the cold case from Carlsbad, California.
Yeah.
And in that case, it went cold. It was a 1987 murder of a young Hispanic maid that worked for a relatively affluent couple in the La Costa area of Carlsbad. She had gotten off of a city bus at about 8 o'clock at night and was walking the short distance. It was about a quarter of a mile to her home. She lived with the affluent couple in a ADU, and she was abducted, dragged off the street into some bushes, and she was essayed, she was strangled, she was robbed, and she was discovered the next morning. This occurred on a Friday night, and she was discovered on Saturday morning by a jogger. That was my case, and I worked it diligently for a couple of weeks initially, along with other detectives, of course. And we got a lot of tips on it. We actually did a Crime Stoppers reenactment of it, where they filmed. If you remember back in the day, San Diego PD had their film crew, and Linda Zweig, if you remember her, she ran that for San Diego Police Department. And Linda came up and with her team, and they did a very good reenactment, and that aired on San Diego TV for weeks. And we got a lot of tips, as you could imagine, but nothing really panned out. And one of the ways that we handled the tips at Carlsbad, and we had a relatively small detective squad, but we would all of us that were working the case, we would take the tips and in a written format, and we would go into the conference room over coffee, and we would just sit and go through all of the tips and decide which ones we thought were viable to follow up on and which ones we didn't. So that's how we did it. So
That's a great segue into my next thought here. Today's world is, a lot of lab work, a lot of, digital footprints, et cetera. But, what about now that the DNA doesn't come back and it turns out to be unrelated to anything? And now, how often do those types of leads that you just talked about, Bob, occur in missing persons cases? And what strategies are utilized going through those leads so that you don't get into this rabbit hole tunnel vision aspect of things? And do you understand where I'm going with that question?
yeah, I think so. You just have to use your good judgment and your wisdom and experience to vet these leads. I'll quote, well, I'll say this: you just have to use your good judgment. And as I said, it wasn't just my judgment in vetting the leads. My whole team, we sat and walked through all of the tips that we got, and we decided who was going to follow up on what. And before I forget, I might add that in that Julia Hernandez case, just for the audience, Carlsbad PD actually made an arrest on the case. The murder occurred in 1987, and they made an arrest in 2021 on the case based on a DNA match. And I went back down to Carlsbad and testified for 2 days.
Yep.
The current detectives that got the case did an amazing job, because as we all know, just because you get a DNA hit doesn't mean you can go out and arrest that person. So they had quite a bit of follow-up to do. And it turns out it was a career criminal who had been employed locally there and committed this crime. He had been arrested in 2021 by San Diego sheriffs in Poway, California. And when he was booked on a gun and drug charge, they did a DNA swab on him, and that's what made the connection to our case. So it was a good case, and very, very satisfying for me. That was 36 years after the murder that we convicted him. So
Wow.
Very good case. Yeah.
Well, I always think it's interesting to look at historical cases to learn from them. And you remember after the Sharon Tate murder, and everything that went on there with the Manson family, a little boy, I think he was 10 years old, actually found the .22 caliber revolver that had been used. Police were looking everywhere for it. The kid, it got reported. It sat on a shelf somewhere in a police station. Then months and months later, there was a newspaper article about the case, and the kid's father became furious that no one seemed to care that the kid turned in a firearm. So they called up. The father called up, made a complaint. Turned out to be the gun everyone was looking for, sitting there in a police station on the shelf, and helped the whole case along. It was actually broken into pieces because part of the gun had been used to beat one of the victims, and the other piece was the one that had been used to kill in that house. And I think it's just a great example of how sometimes the public can do better work than the law enforcement. This kid just picked this gun up, and the law enforcement didn't think it meant anything. And, helping nail these people. So, I always loved that story. This little 10-year-old.
Gary, this is something when I ran the evidence room at this department where I live now in Virginia.
Yeah.
One of the things I was part of the training for young officers, and the area of found property was something in the classes that I always would teach these officers.
Yeah.
That if you get out and they say it's a found property report, that doesn't mean that you put your brain on automatic and just put it in a bag and turn it in, because you don't know that today's found purse isn't going to be tomorrow's homicide evidence. You don't know this. And so, which was the reason why I would stress to them that you needed to take adequate care of the property because you never knew what it could turn into.
That's right.
And because I do know what you're talking about with how that gun sat on the shelf.
Yeah, it's an
And,
interesting story. I love that the father became so mad that he called up and said, "I'm not going to rest until you figure out what this gun is." And it helped unravel the whole case.
Well,
Yeah.
and you're calling, and you're back in that era. I would like to think that current police departments are a little bit more receptive and a little bit more on the ball and maybe a little bit less compartmentalized. That's something that began to change in the 80s, is that we became less compartmentalized, less in the way of I work robbery, homicide, and that's all I work and that's all I pay attention to. There was a lot of just where people toss information out to a big room, and somebody say, "Hey, I'm looking for this, this guy," and somebody go, "Well, I'm working him on a case too." And it's a lot of it is just fostering communication, and which there are unfortunately egoistic cops who they want to be the star of a case. And I don't think that you're seeing that here, but that's one of the things when you're a supervisor, you need to stress to people that we got no stars here.
Right.
Which is, that's a good segue, John, also into the next kind of concept I want to get into. The family and the media impact is, I guess, what I'll call, and there goes Buddy, everybody. As the mother of a prominent media figure like Savannah Guthrie, how do you guys think the high-profile nature of this case has influenced this investigation, the public tips, and of course the family's coping process? And Gary, I'll start with you on that one.
Well, it's complicated because, first of all, you have to remember that what this family is likely dealing with is what might be called a kind of delayed grief, which is where you don't know if you're supposed to begin the process of accepting something because a part of you is clinging to the possibility of hope. Then you take that and you put it in the public eye, where you've got to maintain composure and you don't want to give too much away, and law enforcement might be telling you to keep things, in the family and close to the vest and all of that. So I think the only thing harder than experiencing grief, particularly delayed grief, is having to do it on television all the time, right? So there is that. It adds this kind of strange, surreal element on top of it. Then you have the fact that I think one might argue that the sheriff is in a complicated position because he's got a lot of heat on him. I mean, to kind of do something in a very high-profile case, and anything he might be doing to hold things close to the vest and keep them out of the public eye, he might be accused by the public of being lazy or not doing enough or doing things that are silly or whatever, and he can't show his cards. So that's a complicated position to be in, right? And so I think there is that. So there's this sort of weird thing going on with this case that it almost has like this movie or TV-like quality to it, where we're sort of forgetting that these are real people because the whole thing is unraveling on television. We see this with a lot of cases these days. I thought the Koberger case, for example, people after a little while started forgetting that it wasn't an episode of CSI. I mean, these were real human beings. I mean, we talked to one of the victims' families frequently, and it was driven home to us that these are real human beings. So I think that's my sense about it, is that the whole thing must just be completely surreal. My heart goes out to them because I can't even imagine what it must feel like. What is it, 35 days now? To not know if you should start mourning or cleaning a house out. I mean, just think about it like that. The house gets given back.
36. We're into day 36 today.
Okay. So now, like, the house goes back to them. Are they supposed to clean it out? Are they supposed to, start giving things away, or is mom coming home? It's that kind of thing. And I don't know how to make the public understand how difficult that must be.
Well, and which is a very interesting dynamic because, in a broader, sense, the family has pleaded, for proof of life and obviously asked the public, we need your help. We need your focus. We need your clarity. And yet in today's world, in the 21st century, for lack of a better term, there's a dynamic shift taking place. And I'm curious what you guys are thinking about, 24-hour news, right? And what is 24-hour news? And to this, with all the YouTube sleuth searching and not knowing if they found a clue or not, is your stance to leave the search to the professionals? Let's talk about when we have private groups like the Cajun Navy, for an example, come in. Bob and John, what do you guys think about private organizations coming in and saying, hey, can we help?
Well, I think as it relates to this case, the United Cajun Navy is very able. I did a little bit of research on them, and they are comprised, they are very heavy former and retired military, former and retired law enforcement, former and retired firefighters, etc. So I think they're very capable. However, in my opinion, I think the Pima County Search and Rescue Team is very capable also. And they have extraordinary resources. They perform a lot of search and rescues every year throughout the Southwest or Southern Arizona. And when I say resources, I'm talking about, we've all seen the sheriff's helicopter. That is not used for patrol work. They rely on Tucson PD when they need a patrol helicopter. So that helicopter that belongs to Pima County is predominantly used for search and rescue work. You can see the hoist on the outside of it in some of the photographs. And of course, that's used in search and rescue missions. They also have an NGO team called Southwest Rescue Dogs. And they have not only search dogs, but they have cadaver dogs attached to that group, and they make themselves available to Pima County quite often, based on what I read in the research that I did. So, and then they have another group actually called the Southern Arizona Rescue Association, and they do a lot of training and provide equipment, etc., to Pima County Search and Rescue. They also provide some searchers to assist Pima County. So they've got a myriad of resources. I think we've all wondered why they haven't done a more extensive search from the Guthrie, from Nancy's home, and worked outward from there and expanded, into some of the remote areas of the county. It's possible they've done that and none of the media has seen it or gotten onto it, and so we don't know about it. But it doesn't appear as though they have done that, and that's a little perplexing to me. They have the resources, and I think they should use them. So going back to your original question, Chris, I don't think there's any harm in allowing the United Cajun Navy to come in with their resources and their very able group of people to assist them in the search. So I don't think liability is an issue. Generally, when you have groups, NGOs come in and assist law enforcement, you have a memorandum of understanding that is written so that everybody knows what the boundaries are, and you can operate very easily under those conditions. And so it's a mystery to me why Sheriff Nanos has not accepted that offer.
John, any thoughts?
There's not much I can add to what Bob said there. I just, the only thing I would say is It's been 36 days. What do they have to lose? I can understand a concern on their part that evidence might be compromised, but if this organization is composed of former cops, firefighters, and military people, it would occur to me that the chances of that are reduced. And I'll just go right back and say it again. What do they have to lose? They need to find this woman.
Yeah. I think I agree with both of you. I have nothing else to add either. And I think then the next question is, what do private investigators do, right? And in these times, do they help or hinder? The camp out broadcast every chance is purpose watching seems to me they're hindering. Doug Allen says, and PIs at this point, I would submit that the investigation is still moving at 150 miles an hour. And there are some great private investigators that can be extremely helpful, and it's important to listen to them while the case is flowing. But then there are others that are just advertising for their businesses. We're going to conduct a search out here and look for this item or that item. And they put it up on Facebook or wherever it's going to go. And the public goes, yay. Okay. But you never hear anything that came out of it. Okay. And it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? I mean, I'm a director at the Cold Case Foundation. We have 167 experts from around the world. And we're not putting stuff up on Facebook of what we're doing. And those of you who follow the Cold Case Foundation, I'm just one guy of 167 guys, right? And nobody knew we were involved in the Michael Vaughn case until all of a sudden we were just all over, the news. And I texted the detective the other day. I said, note to self, remind me to sit behind you next time. And she started laughing, Anita, you know who I'm talking about. And she started cracking up. And the D. Warner case is another example. That's out to jury, so I'm not going to talk about it. But we were involved in that case too. Okay. Nobody knew that until it either went to trial or it went to prelim. And these are the kind of things, that's the difference. That's the difference. We're not advertising to say, come look at us like Bob and John and Gary were talking about. We're trying to help the investigators move into a position where they're the tip of the spear and they are making the decisions, and we are a sounding board of individuals that have done it. And so that's the difference between PIs and cases like this. There is no way right now I would get involved in any way, shape, or form in this investigation unless the sheriff or the FBI said, hey, we're out of resources. Can we bounce stuff off you guys? Okay. And that's it. That's how it works. So that being said, what are the broader implications here? I want to get this, Gary, from your position here. This case spotlights the trauma of unsolved missing persons right now and investigations. I mean, this is like textbook, problematic. And so based on our experiences here, what long-term effects do you think it will have on the families, and what support systems will be necessary, and how can we help support them most effectively, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, part of the reason I'm so proud to be a member, of the Cold Case Foundation, to be on the expert panel, is precisely because of its authentic commitment to victims and the understanding that the leadership has, and really, to be honest, every member has, that victimization is not as simple as the person who is abducted or the person who is killed but that there is a ripple effect, and that victimization can involve the entire family, immediate and beyond. sometimes even an entire community, will have that sense of not having closure or living in terror and all of that. So, the thing is, you're really asking is a very broad question of, what is the nature of victimization, and what is the role of closure for giving people peace? And as somebody who has worked a lot with victims of crime, I mean, I have to tell you, it is to have a case solved, even if it is decades later, can give closure to people. We were chatting, for example, privately about a case that got solved where they got a guy from Honduras who had fled after killing a little girl in Philadelphia. Remember, we were texting about that? And the community's response was, now we can rest. It had been like 25 years. Now we can rest because we thought there must be a pervert out there. Right. So it's like, there's very, very long-reaching, wide-reaching effects. But I think that when a case isn't solved, what you can see is a kind of multi-generational trauma. You can have a story that where the family says, look, we feel like nobody cares about us. We have to go out and take matters into our own hands. You see that a lot in cases that involve people who are a little more unseen, populations that are a little more unseen in our media. For example, among Native American people, there's that lack of closure and people saying, I've got to go out and kind of do this myself. In the book we're doing, Chris, there's a chapter that Greg Cooper and Victor Petreka and Catherine Ramsland wrote about the Heavy Runner case, where this missing woman's own sister basically had to lead the process of going looking for her because you couldn't get anybody to do anything about it. So, I think it's what I would say about it is that the effects can be many, many years. They can be multi-generational. They can affect an entire community. And I also think there is a lopsidedness with regard to resources. One of the things that's been complicated about this case is that because it happens to involve a high-profile figure, it's eating up a lot of attention in the media, which is a wonderful thing. But there are many, many heinous cases that are just off the radar. And if this amount of attention going all the way up to the upper echelons of government could be placed on all of them, a lot of them would get solved. So I think I worry about that. It's one of the things, again, that I love about the foundation is that a family could come to us and say, I know this case is 35 years old, but I feel everyone's given up on us and I want to petition the group to take a look. And, Chris, we get cases that are decades old.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that. But
John, anything you want to add to?
Nailed it.
Yeah.
That's just, I've seen it, but it never ends. I don't think mourning really ever ends for these people, especially if what happens to the person is heinous. It's rough.
Yeah, and it's just hanging out there right now. There's
right.
no closure, and so folks are hanging on hope. Everybody, the community is, and that hope, does it turn into anger, Gary? I mean, we see folks hanging out in front of the house on the street, which, by the way, I personally am not against any YouTuber personally that wants to hang out and film and do, chase information or whatever. I'm a firm believer that crime gets solved by citizens and investigators, unless it's at the crime scene. We need the investigators need that information. Look at every cold case right now that's going on in this country. It's not the cops solving them. It's all of a sudden you'll get a phone call, you'll get a DNA hit, you'll get something that says, hey, here's your direction of travel here. This is where the evidence is taking you. And it's the investigator that chases it down. Well, remember, it was a citizen driving around the back roads near the Tetons that spotted,
Gabby Petito.
Gabby Petito's van.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And law enforcement in the 21st century, in my opinion, needs to embrace that principle. They don't need to push it away. And the Cajun Navy is a good example, but it needs to be within limits of understanding. Even it's a responsibility up to that person as well, the YouTuber or the streamer or whatever we're going to call them. They have to have a sense of respectability and relationship to don't go over that line.
Right.
Okay. Don't follow the FBI around town. Because you don't know what they're doing and how they're doing it. They may need that stealth, concept because they may be onto something. And, it's interesting because the professionals do it too. I don't care what anybody says. I've been around this game a long time, as everybody on this panel. If a reporter had a tip, the last thing you wanted to see was them camped outside when you showed up with that tip. Just ask Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago and CNN. Okay. CNN was there before the caravan. And when they showed up, it was like, okay, well, it's the same principle. They condemn, yet they do. And you can't have it that way in this world today, in the 21st century. There's a transition taking place, and it's social media. Look what's happening overseas. Social media is getting out and showing the world what's happening. Look what's happening in New York just a couple of days ago, which you talked about, Gary. There are hundreds of videos online right now of these guys throwing these bombs. Okay. And so it's a whole different world out there. And we have to accept it in law enforcement. It has to be accepted because citizens are doing good things as well. Are they doing, sometimes different things? Yeah. But at the other side of the coin, they're also doing good things. And which leads us to, a future outlook. What does it look like when you have a sheriff who comes up and says to the mainstream media, one station, well, it looks like we're definitely getting closer. Well, when you announce that to one news organization, what do you expect social media to do? Okay. Well, they're going to go out and look for that definitely closer. What does that mean in today's world? And law enforcement has to accept it. And this, I think, goes back to the principle what Bob and John and yourself and myself and Karen talked about. He needs to just pull this into, again, that podium. Even at this juncture, it's never too late. And start having briefings with everybody in the room. Because the more he keeps doing this, which he said, and I'll quote him, says, given the sheriff's statement, the investigators are definitely closer to a resolution. What the heck does that mean? And what potential next steps or breakthroughs might the world be expecting in the next couple of weeks? That's going to be the logical question. And rather than just give it to one person, even Brian Enton was frustrated the other day. In one of his videos, he's walking down the street talking to the camera saying, yeah, he's only talking to NBC. I've tried to get into him a couple of times. And they're doggone News Nation. Okay. And that's that frustration, even from the mainstream media, is no different than the mainstream media's frustration with YouTubers and streamers. It's equal in its presentation. And that's a dangerous path to be on, going forward. I mean, what say you guys?
Well, Chris, I just want to answer the question you asked me a minute ago about anger.
Mm-hmm.
Because you asked, and then something else came up. But the thing is, you have to remember that anger is a very classic and common stage of grief, right? We all, when we've had a loss, we tend to go through these particular phases. I certainly have experienced grief. I know, Chris, you've been touched by grief, and John, and I'm not sure if you have, Bob, but I can't imagine you haven't at some point in life experienced a loss.
Of course.
No, you're going to go through repression and bargaining and anger and denial and acceptance and everything else in some order. But the thing is, what makes these things more complicated is that sometimes, in meaning well, the general public can also become invasive, and that can add to the fury. So, like, you can have, for example, a funeral services after a victim's remains have been found in a horrifying case, and the public is sticking cameras in your face or accusing a family member, at the service. I mean, and you get people who just want content for social media and things like that, which can be really horrifying. And having worked with victims and talked to people who have been associated with some of the most high-profile cases, and I get the other side of things sometimes. I mean, just as a simple example, and I won't say what case this is because I always promised that I never would. A very well-known and horrifying case where the mother of a victim, a female victim, explained to someone who told it to me, another person in the family, and then I ultimately heard it, that a detective magazine published a picture of their daughter nude after having been assaulted and killed. Very lurid, inappropriate. And the mother got in her car and drove up and down the length of a very large state in the United States and purchased every single copy of the magazine she could get her hands on, filling the room to the rafters at home where she was storing them, because the logic was that every issue that didn't get sold, one less person was going to see her daughter. Mm-hmm. That always stayed with me, to kind of remind me what it feels like when you're on the other side and how ugly the media can be. Because, if you were to ask the person who published the photo, they say, well, the public has a right to know. I don't know. Is nothing sacred? If it were my child, I wouldn't want them published.
Well, that's a
struggle. It's a struggle. I'm curious what you guys think about it. But
it's a fine line. There's no question it is a fine line, and that's why journalists go to journalism school and they learn about those lines. And law enforcement, we learn about those lines as well. And there's things you can do and things you can't do, things you can say and things you shouldn't say. But in today's world, we've blurred those lines, whatever that means, right? And however, the genie's out of the bottle. Let's just face it. And so we have to all accept it from both dynamics. YouTube's not going away. Streamers aren't going away. There are good ones and there are bad ones. I've been called a bad one in the past. I mean, it's just reality of how the perception of what people think and how they think. But the most important piece of this problem is, remember, the 8-track was the most dynamic way to listen to music in your car. Okay. Those days are gone. Okay. And the music industry went, oh my gosh, what are we going to do next? And then the cassette tape came around. And they were like, oh, this is the solution. We're good. We still got tape. We still got business. And then digital music came around. And the record companies went, holy cow, what in the world are we going to do with digital music now? How are we going to get our royalties? BMI registrations and all these other things figure out mechanic, royalties, et cetera, for your music. And then all of a sudden, home studios came around with Pro Tools from Apple. And you got the kid at home making music on his computer that sound just like a $10 million studio. And now it's AI making music by itself. So there's this adaptation that's taking place culturally and in our society as technology advances. And it's no different in the news business. Look at all the former journalists who have their own YouTube channels. Think about that. That is a very interesting dynamic. Look at all the I'm one of them. Look at all the former PD guys who have their own YouTube channels. Okay. That's an evolution of, you know what? I have something to offer, vice versa. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But, I think that is, a really interesting principle because how has that affected the broader picture here in Nancy's case? This is about Nancy Guthrie. And you're going to have the lunatics show up there and the short shorts and all the other garbage, that comes along with that stuff. But you're also going to have maybe that one person that walks up because they don't trust the cops, but they walk up to somebody out front and go, "Hey, I want to tell you something." What's that? Boom, boom, boom. And next thing you know it, that person has live streamed it, hypothetically, and the cops have watched it. And they go, "Holy crap, did you guys hear that? Yeah, let's find that guy." And that's how these kind of things happen. It wouldn't surprise me one iota, and you guys tell me what you think, if the suspect hasn't already been back to that house and that memorial.
Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising at all.
I wouldn't be shocked if that happened.
But which suspect, door guy or the guy that probably
Any one of them
conspired with door guy?
I guess my question would be is why wouldn't you have set up permanent surveillance there in the event that he did come back? If you remember the case of a San Diego sheriff's detective who planted a tape recorder at his victim's grave because he knew the suspect was coming back, and the guy confessed to the woman he killed and caught there. What I'm seeing here, something I'm going to suggest, and I'm not going to do it in a finger wagging way, is there can be an over reliance by following standard procedures. There's this reliance on, well, we'll get DNA, we'll get fingerprints, we'll get this, we'll get that. I don't see as much imaginative thinking, deductive thinking, thinking outside the box of ways to address cases. And that may be, in fairness, that may be that I'm away from it, and I've been away from it for years. But I can remember doing really rather imaginative investigations that you wouldn't learn in a police academy, but because you had bright people using their imaginations to solve cases.
Good point.
Yeah, excellent point, John.
That's a great point. Yeah, and so let's shift here for a second. Let's talk about the latest and greatest, i.e. Wi-Fi jammers. Okay. Whether or not, the suspect on the porch has a Wi-Fi jammer. It's unconfirmed, other than the fact that the feds are going around asking if there was any interruption in, internet service within a couple of miles outside of the house. Okay.
Chris, I think the timing of their visit to the neighbors is interesting because it was directly after some of the sleuths and YouTubers and the folks that we were just talking about have pointed that out, and suggested that it was some kind of a jammer. Now, to me personally, I can't see enough of it. It appears to be an antenna. It appears as though it could be an antenna from one of these $50 pack sets that you can buy at Walmart, walkie-talkies, that is. Yeah. But it could be a jammer. I'm not that familiar with these Wi-Fi jammers, so it could very well be that. But I just thought the timing of the sheriff's and FBI's visit to the neighborhood to ask that question is very interesting.
Yeah, and I know Jason's in the chat here. He's an IT guy, much more an expert at this, but just the lay person Reader's Digest version here is, Wi-Fi networks operate primarily on 2 frequency bands, 2.4 gigahertz and then 5 gigahertz, which is standard Wi-Fi, right? You're with more channels but shorter range. The other one, 2.4, 1 to 14, widely used and more prone to interference. So a jammer works by transmitting a powerful noise signal, typically on a pulse, on the same frequency as the targeted Wi-Fi band. So that means if that guy had a jammer on the porch, he's targeting the Wi-Fi of Nancy's home, not the neighbors, because the ability for these things to go out, the furthest that I found was about 100 yards. And I'm not talking about military grade. I'm just talking about commercial grade, over the counter, Amazon, Whamma Jamma. Okay, you can buy these things out there. You can watch Sean Ryan and you can see the kid that comes up there, the expert that talks about, how to, get passwords and all this other stuff. All that stuff exists. There's no question about it. However, okay, the portable handheld types are battery operated devices, and they're typically only used in short-term use, and many target 2.4 gigahertz, or the dual band excluding mini blockers with a less than 60 yards ability to jam anything. So I'm going to look at this almost like the Bitcoin stuff. Right? The Bitcoin first letters, the ransom letters that came in to the 2 news stations and to TMZ, I've always felt was just noise. Okay, just noise. Mm-hmm. And that everybody ran that direction, but I was still of the opinion that the Pima County Sheriff's Office was still at the house and still working that house. Now, here we are 36 days into this, and I think our theory is being borne out that we were right. Okay? They haven't left the house and they haven't left the neighborhood. And in fact, the FBI and the sheriffs the other day were back there knocking on doors, and they're asking, not only about when did your internet go out around the neighborhood, but more importantly, they're asking, do you have any video? Okay. And so, the multifunction jammers, they combine Wi-Fi blocking with cell phone, but you cannot block in totality a cell phone signal. It's still going to be sent and ping from the tower. And there are multiple systems that the feds have. One of them is called Gladiator. Now, anybody can go look at the website, but you can't get in. It's just a face sheet. It's called Gladiator. Okay? It is a program designed by an FBI agent, a former FBI agent. He's actually a friend of mine, and his name is Cameron. And when I used to work right after I retired for TransUnion, that was kind of my lane in the cell phone game. I was ran in that for a couple of years before I got picked up by the Cold Case Foundation. And so they know what time it is in this footprint around that house. And so I don't think that the effectiveness of these things that people are talking about, their output power, first of all, has to be really great to go further than just that front porch. That would mean you would need a device. And I love that that social media is showing the guy walking around with the gigantic box on film going up, and doing this. Okay. That device in of itself took one person just to hold that box up to jam, a Ring camera. Okay. And he's not jamming the Ring cameras of everybody in the neighborhood. He's jamming that one Ring camera. Okay. And people are going, wow, that's really, maybe that's what's happening here. Well, the next really important piece to understand is the antenna design. A Wi-Fi jammer needs a specific type of antenna to, first of all, pick up the signal and then send a secondary signal to jam it. Okay. So if you've got this device in your pocket and just the antenna sticking out, well, what's the other antenna that is sending the return signal to jam it? Okay. We're not seeing that. Okay. But if you'll look at a Wi-Fi jammer, it has multiple antennas on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gary, you're muted.
That's sorry, that won't
Okay.
do. But just to clarify something, what would be the purpose of jamming other people's signal? I mean, if my Wi-Fi went out, I'm such a night owl. In the middle of the night, mine went out. I'd go outside to inspect. I mean, you're going to get people possibly to go out of their house.
Right.
I mean, what's the logic of why you would do it? I mean, does anyone have any idea? Or is it just a side effect of using it in that home?
John?
The only thing I can think of is if, well, there are two parallel lanes here. Was it done to shut down the Wi-Fi because there was a belief that there was an alarm system?
Right, or another camera that they might have.
Yeah, another camera but then I also think, how does the person with the jammer now, and Chris, you can answer this, can you purchase a device that will block both frequencies?
No, it won't block it will not block cell phone frequency.
So how do you know which device to buy?
That's a great question.
Because unless, and again, we're purely speculating here, because I'm not convinced that it was a jammer,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you know which device with which frequency to buy unless you've been there and you know what the Wi-Fi is?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's actually it keeps us at the house, to your point.
Exactly. So and that's if it is a jammer. I'm not convinced it is. I think from my looking at it, it might be a walkie-talkie. I think that's far more likely. I think at this point, the jammer idea, we're running counter to Occam's razor again. We're adding layers to this because we haven't been able to solve it, and so now we're creating fresh problems, and perhaps misidentifying other technology because we're literally grasping at straws.
Yeah, and the real world examples are, many portable models will jam up to 10 to 33 feet. Mid-range portable models will jam up to 66 feet. And then high-powered units will jam up to 100 to 125 square yards, approximately. So now when you start getting into the military-grade stuff and law enforcement stuff, which law enforcement has, okay, and they're connected to real-time crime centers, RTCCs and fusion centers, okay, and you need a federal warrant to use them for terrorism primarily, okay. Military stuff is just off the hook, off the walls, okay. That's DARPA stuff, okay, and they can put them out in the mountains, and if you pick up your phone, they're going to pinpoint you in about 2 milliseconds. And you will probably evaporate with a JDAM within a couple of minutes. Just saying. Okay. Go ahead, Paul. Did you want to say something?
Just to circle back around to what we think that device was in the pocket. We're pretty certain the crooks here didn't carry their cell phones to do this job, and it would make a lot more sense for them to have some way of communicating, and that way of communicating would be those $50 walkie-talkie sets from Walmart that you can buy. And when I first saw that thing sticking out of the pocket, that's what resonated with me, that it was because a lot of those are real thick antennas. They're real, yeah.
There's the expert right here. Jason's an expert. I know that.
Yeah, and I don't. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I don't think that's a police scanner. You have to, first of all, a lot of police departments now, a lot of sheriff's office and city police. I know my former department in Denver, it's all encrypted, so you can't listen to any of it on a scanner. And I don't know if Tucson, if Pima County or Tucson PD, if they're encrypted or not, but that's the first obstacle. The second would be there's no ear plug in this guy's ear that we can see, and I don't believe that you can Bluetooth that signal into like an AirPod or anything like that. Now maybe you could, but I doubt it. With that Walmart style walkie-talkie, and so listening, trying to figure out which radio call it is to the Guthrie house would be pretty difficult for the novice listener, quite honestly. And so I doubt that. So I just think it's a walkie-talkie so they can communicate and rendezvous or whatever it is that they were doing. And and I say they because I'm convinced I'm in the same camp Gary is. There's more than one. I've said previously, my opinion, it's 2 to 5 people involved in this entire conspiracy, and that's what I think. So
I just saw a comment that flashed by, Chris. We had a former dispatcher from Pima County who states that their frequency is not encrypted, and they use the repeater system. And then they get bleed over from the repeaters. So, but Bob makes a very good point. Let's just say, for example, you could actually scan that frequency and somehow he could hear. That doesn't mean he's going to be able to make sense. That's going to require the people using it to be up on police codes and to know what's being broadcast, and it just seems to me that it makes far more sense that it's just a walkie-talkie.
Yeah, and I think Jason makes a really solid point. I mean, here's a guy who's an expert. He's an IT guy, and he does this every single day. And when we're talking about a repeater system for police radios, for an example, the 800 megahertz, which you're talking about, right, Bob?
Yes.
Those are all scrambled. You can't get into that. That's where all the the SWAT channels are. That's when they're on an incident. Everybody's talking. We used to call it car to car, and it's in a whole different field of frequency. But with what repeaters are is basically towers throughout the entire county. And when an officer clicks the microphone, that sends the signal to one tower, that sends it to the next tower, that sends it to the next tower, that sends it down to the tower on top of the dispatch center. Okay. Well, I mean, how many of us back in the day had these dead zones? You knew, if you click that mic, dispatch wasn't hearing you because it would hit the tower, and then all of a sudden you're in a valley and your signal couldn't get up to the tower because of some type of obstacle, maybe another hill, maybe something like that. And so, it could be, a simple walkie-talkie that, you ever seen the Brian Regan where he does the walkie-talkie shtick? They say, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Walkie and talking in." And I mean, it's hysterical. You got to see it. I got to pull it up. Karen, can you pull it up? Send it to me in the chat. I got to show everybody, but it's
Well, Chris,
hysterical.
you mentioned repeaters in Oceanside, and when I first arrived in Oceanside, we didn't have a repeater system on our radios.
You
It
guys
was all line of sight.
screens. You had
Yeah.
smoke screens.
Yeah, if you get out near North Santa Fe, I mean,
Yeah.
you'd be a mere 11 miles from the police station. They couldn't hear you. And when I worked in the desert, you learned very quickly, if you got into a canyon, as you just said, you knew that you weren't going to get out, that they weren't going to be able to pick you up. So, but that's like a long time ago.
Yeah, and that was some scary times because you never knew whether or not dispatch was going to hear you, and you could be rolling in the mud with
Yeah,
somebody.
and we weren't carrying cell phones either back in those days. So,
and they're trying to pull your gun.
Yeah.
They're trying
We had, in fact, when I first started, and you'll remember this, Bob, the portable radios we were issued were roughly equivalent to the weight of a brick, which was useful. They could sometimes be used as a blunt force trauma weapon. It was a different era.
Well, let me just tell a little story here real quick about that particular thing, John. So if you recall the San Diego sheriffs, when their union voted to go out, what's the word I'm looking for?
A labor stoppage, or
yes,
how about the double word? They went on strike.
Yeah, okay. That's the word I was looking for. So they were on strike, and I want to say this was like 83 or so.
No, Bob, it was 1980, because if you will remember, the week after San Diego sheriffs came back, Riverside sheriffs went on strike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I remember John Duffy was still the sheriff in San Diego County. Anyway, so Rich Meehan and I, San Diego sheriffs are on strike. They only had like a handful of marked units on the road throughout the county, and they were staffed by command officers. So commanders, captains, deputy chiefs, etc., from the agency were working those in two-man cars. So Rich Meehan and I were detailed in a two-man car, and we were covering Fallbrook, San Marcos, and Vista for the sheriffs. And we were only rolling to in progress felonies. Everything else was not being handled. And so we get a call to respond to Vista. One of the sheriff's units with the two commanders in it were in way over their heads. They went to some kind of disturbance in an apartment complex, and they got the living you-know-what beat out of them with their radios. The radios were taken from them in this melee, and Rich and I rolled up, and the bats went swinging, and we took care of business and rescued these two commanders from this brawl, from this gaggle of people that were attacking them. And so I remember, and then of course we called for the cavalry from Oceanside, and we rolled in there and broke everything up, took a few to jail. But going over the scene, I found one of the sheriff's radios, and John's not kidding. It was the body of it was about the size of a brick and almost as heavy. And the thing was broken in two, and one of the commanders had the radio, was hit over the head with the radio, and he took a bunch of stitches, and these guys were beat up pretty good. They were fortunate that they didn't have their guns taken and used against them, because this mob would have definitely done that. So
yeah,
anyway,
and
just a little war story.
love it.
Since you brought up the radio.
And so in context here, putting the jammer theory to bed for this panel anyway, remember that jammers, if they're going to be utilized, are utilized to disable wireless cameras and doorbells primarily. Okay. And then smart home systems And that's probably why the investigators are going around ringing doorbells and asking them if they had any type of internet outage that evening. But the problem that, again, this suspect did not anticipate is the one point that Bob brought up, the Nest camera that he was trying to cover with a weed, okay, was battery operated. You know, how the suspect would have not known that, or he did know it, and this is a game, okay, still we're waiting to see how that sorts itself out. So then again, we go into this idea of, you know, the technology that's out there, and it could just be as simple as, yes, in fact, it could have just be a walkie-talkie. But again, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, for lack of a better term, because he's wearing those big, thick gloves, and he's got to get those gloves into his, you know, jacket pocket there, as well as those gloves through the trigger guard of that handgun that he was so eloquently holding in the front. You know, John, thoughts? I see your brain going.
I just know you've nailed. We've said this before. He's wearing those gloves, and he's got that small auto pistol. There's no way he could get his finger in there. So, and again, it strikes me that if he feels he has to use it, hold on a moment, let me remove my glove. Or is it a prop? Is it, you know, is it a fake gun used to scare an old woman in the dark?
Right.
There's some incongruous elements to this.
Yeah, which goes towards the next conversation here. I want to go and ask you guys what you're thinking. Is, you know, the sheriff has given us multiple choices, for lack of a better term. Most recently about the Ozark backpack that and the unusual holster that could be purchased at Walmart. Okay. But then he threw a curveball and said, well, you know, he could have purchased it secondhand, you know, through other means. Okay. What did you guys make of that, instead of just coming out and saying, yes, like the FBI did? Yeah, this is an Ozark, you know, backpack. It's an Ozark Trail backpack. It's an unusual holster, but you can buy these items at Walmart. And also you could get the mask at Walmart. So, you know, we have a Walmart starter kit purchased by this guy. And yet the sheriff comes out again, tells the media, yeah, but you can also buy that through other places. Does that mean they checked with Walmart and they don't have a point of purchase?
Yeah, or does he have some information that they know it wasn't purchased at Walmart and that it was purchased on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist? So that's what, you know, that's what I got out of that comment that he made.
Okay. Which now I want to lean on Dr. Gary. This goes more towards the chef or the waiter buying these items from not necessarily a point of sale.
It's an interesting question. It depends on how intelligent we think the items were. Because the person who I think cooked this up is brighter, and I suspect has some knowledge of technology, you know, and which fits right in with that narcissism of doing things better than other people do. I know more than they do. I'm smarter. I'm savvy. You know, these people are dummies, which I think is going to characterize whoever that type is. But the thing is, there is this thrown together kind of half-baked quality also to the look of this person. So it's a little tricky to me. It depends on how true it is, for example, that a jammer was used or, you know, or any other kind of equipment. So I think, you know, I'm not convinced that this person didn't just say, here's a little bit of inside information. Now do your thing and I'll pay you, or you'll get a share of the money or something like that. and the person just sort of did it in a half-baked kind of way, which I don't think was especially good. I mean, that's how it looked to me. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, does it really look like this guy is a pro?
No.
No.
He looks like a schmo, and so, but I think whoever wanted this done gave some information to this person, because the person acts very comfortable and familiar and all of that. I mean, unless of course that they're one and the same, the chef and the like some episode of Scooby-Doo, we discover the chef and the waiter are one and the same.
And I've gotten away with it if it wasn't for you kids.
Right, exactly. Mask comes off and we're all flabbergasted who it is. But it looks currently like there is some nexus between people with different intelligences and different psychologies. But I really, it's a good question, and I'm curious what you guys think. I mean, is there anything that's suggesting to you that there's anything brilliant going on here, that some super intelligent person made these purchases?
No,
not
at all. And the gun, we've talked about the gun a million times, but the gun is the probably the best example of that. And now, could this guy want us to believe that he's a doofus? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that was part of the shtick, is to throw him off my trail by looking like a doofus. So I don't know.
This seems a lot of extra effort to me, and I agree with you, Bob. This might actually be an artifice to mislead investigators. But if the purpose is to go to the house in the middle of the night and abduct a woman, why go through that? And you're increasing your opportunities of being discovered. Now this guy he looks like an oxygen thief, to be honest, and I just look at, like, he dressed up like this, and I think he may even thought he looked cool.
And I asked an eye doctor, is there anything distinctive about his eyes? And I had one guy tell me, an optometrist, he thought on the left eye, he said this very carefully, like Gary does, right? He says, "So I'm not diagnosing the guy or anything like that, but if you notice." Well, and rightfully so, right? And so I'm just repeating what was told to me. He thought in the inner portion of the left eye, right in this area, he said, "I think I see a cyst on the guy." And if you look at this picture, it looks almost a little clearer on the left eye. Do you see that?
Yes.
I thought
a lighter color.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very astute observation. Almost like Jason telling us about Wi-Fi jammers, right? I mean, this is what this guy does for a living. Now, it wasn't, Karen's uncle is an eye surgeon. I haven't shown him, but I did, solicit some professionals. And that comment was very interesting to me. What do you guys think in the chat? And I don't want to make anything, gigantic out of this. Again, this was just an observation, just like, the Wi-Fi jammer concept, right? I think that's off the table for our panel, unless you guys had anything else. No?
No, I don't think it's that significant.
And I think Jason helped us put that to bed, and thank you so much, bud. But so now we look at the characteristics of this guy. If we blow that picture up, which I did, but I don't have it in front of me, it looks like there could be an anomaly there, which would be incredibly important towards a suspect. And, while we're all looking at clothing and everything like that, this doctor was like, well, I looked at his eyes right away, and I thought I saw what appeared to be some type of anomaly around his left eye. And you can clearly see something, or at least it looks like a lighter, and I don't know if that's a reflection. I don't know if it's coming off of the glove back to the face. I can't say personally, but it does look like something in that area of the eye, where he pointed it out first in this picture. Whoops. In this picture, right? And then this is the one where he says, there could be something there. And that's what he just said. There could be something there, quote unquote. He didn't say there was something there, for the record, everybody. Okay? He just said there could be something there. Go ahead. Any thoughts?
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the FBI and sheriffs have blown that up and analyzed it very carefully.
Well, I could imagine that everybody out there is going to be examining the faces of people who have become part of the cast of characters in the story to see if they've got anything there. I could just see where this could go. But it's certainly an interesting point. I mean, it's not something that you could easily get rid of, to change an identifying thing. I mean, you could shave or change your hair or change your whatever, but that's just one thing that's going to be pretty rough to eliminate.
When we first saw this video and they showed the up close stills of his face, a lot of people thought that this guy was wearing a mask underneath the balaclava. So I don't see that, but I'm no expert in, and many people referred to it as a specific type of mask, and I can't recall what they said it was, but a lot of people said it, not only in the chat, but I heard it on some other programs as well. And but I just don't see that, especially in that last photo, that it looks like he has something on that left eye. So I don't know. Anybody else see that? I don't see a mask.
I don't see a mask there. Really, would you put a mask on and then put a balaclava on over it?
Yeah, exactly.
And why don't you just blindfold yourself while you're at it?
And I'll go back to this point too, Chris, if you can go back to that one that shows the neck and all. To me, that looks really full. The area underneath the mask, around the neck and around the chin area, look really full to me. And of course I could be wrong, but I don't know if it's a beard. I don't know if it's just the double chin that some people have. It's difficult. It's impossible to tell for sure, but it's really full. And that mask looks like it doesn't look real tight to me, but it looks like it's tight enough where it would form around a chin if it could. And looks like it's kind of very full to me, perhaps because of a beard.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know he's got some type of facial hair because you can see his mustache, as we zoom in, and also he's got something here. Okay, and of course, that could be gone. It's probably gone by now. But this, to your point, let's pick this apart a little bit deeper here for a moment, from a psychological aspect as well as an investigative analysis aspect. I mean, in all candor, what the heck is he doing with these weeds? I mean, why does he feel in his behavior that this is a critical element to this crime?
Well, he is either a bona fide doofus or he wants us to believe he's a doofus. There's no other explanation. It
Yeah,
makes no sense.
Yeah,
for a plan where you've equipped yourself, you've appeared in the middle of the night, you've got a walkie-talkie, you've got your backpack full of your abduction tools, and this is almost impresses me as like what we alluded to earlier about this almost theatric element, where I'm going to include this. You think that somewhere, someplace, a village is missing its idiot, and it's because it just doesn't make a lick of sense otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because we've all had, in a case like this, we all have our moments where we've read too much crime fiction and we have a zany thought and then we go, stop, that's stupid. It sounds like a dumb conspiracy idea. But it's funny, I had the thought come into my mind that if this was a staged crime scene, that maybe the plant was being used to sprinkle the blood. To give it that look of being sort of little flecks that are flying randomly, it's like these bizarre things come into your mind. But what I think it was that he just plucked some foliage and was trying to use it to block the camera or to test to see if it popped, if it came on because there's a little motion or something like that. But if you took the foliage thing off the table, I mean, you would still think that he was a dope. There are a lot of things about this that are dopey. And I have come to agree with people who've looked at this footage and think, he looks sort of intoxicated or high or something like that. Bob, you've been saying that since the
Yeah,
day.
actually, I got that from Maureen. I heard her say it. I don't know if it was on Megyn Kelly's show or what, but she was, the second she said that, and I looked at the video again, I thought that's exactly right. He looks like he's sedated.
And too comfortable, way
Yes.
comfortable, almost as if like it doesn't even occur to you that you're standing outside a home where you're about to go in and do a horrible thing. I mean, when we look at that video footage, we have to understand, like, if this is the way that it's being presented, he is aware that he is carrying on his back materials that are going to be used to abduct and or kill an elderly woman whom he may know, right? And we don't know, or have having studied for a little while at least. And the woman is in her bed, and there are houses that are sort of nearby, and it's the middle of the night. I mean, there's something that just doesn't add up about the behavior of the person. I mean, unless you're just a complete sociopath, it's hard to understand how there doesn't seem to be any anxiety. I would say it almost looks like nonchalance. Like what you're doing is completely, like as if killing or abducting a woman is as insignificant as plucking that plant. And there's something about that just gives you chills when you think about it. And so I don't know. I mean, do you guys pick that up too, the nonchalance?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So that part haunts me.
Why not cover his mustache though? Why not cover his mustache?
Well, it may have slipped. The other thing you notice he doesn't do, except at one point, he doesn't look around to see if he's being observed. There's that one point where he's looking out toward the street.
Right.
He is, he looks completely calm with what he's doing.
And he walks up from the driveway side. He walks up from the driveway side. Now, look at this picture a little bit closer now. Look at the left eye, the eye that's kind of, little whiter there around the top side here.
Yes.
And it's almost like a circle in there. Are you guys picking up what appears?
It looks like something is there, definitely.
That's what the doc was talking about. I mean, and you can actually see it's rounded closer to his pupil as you on that side as you go towards his pupil. And it's it's almost like a radiologist looking at a photograph and saying, well, there's an anomaly here.
And I heard some people talking about his eyebrows too, and I think it was based off this photo. They were saying that that his eyebrows were really thin. Well, of course, we can only see a little bit of his eyebrow, and if that's all you can see, then yeah, it does look thin. But I don't think we're seeing the entire eyebrow. Now this guy may have really thin eyebrows, maybe manicures them, I don't know, but he could also have regular full eyebrows to me, because the mask is covering most of the eyebrows on both sides.
Well, and would you guys agree the only reason you're going to wear a mask to go into an 84-year-old woman's house is for, obvious reasons, identity purposes? Okay.
Well, identity purposes as far as the camera is concerned, because I don't believe that ransom, that this was an abduction. I think we've all been in agreement that this person and others were there that night for the purpose of committing a murder. So I wouldn't see why he would be concerned once inside the residence whether his victim saw him or not.
Right. Good point. Well, and why spend 41 minutes in there?
Well, yeah, exactly.
What's his risk level? I mean, you're lowering your risk level outside by trying to put plants over a camera, right? Somehow making forced entry into a house, which we still don't know how that happened. But this guy is going through all of these, activities, incident activities while it's going down. And he decides, well, you know what? I'm just going to spend 41 minutes in here as well. 41 minutes is a long time.
It's a huge amount of time.
I think that is going to turn out to be one of the most important pieces of information in the whole story, because we don't understand the motive yet, but it has to have been integral to the reason for doing this, that you would spend 41 minutes in that house. And that has been, if there were one question that I could get answered, it's what the heck was going on in there for 41 minutes. For example, was somebody saying to her, what is the password to your such and such, or we're going to kill you? How do we get into your ATM? Are you going to sign this document and change this? Something like that. I could picture somebody trying to get her to do something for a little while. Or she's aware of something or has evidence of something, and they're saying, where is it? That kind of thing. And, but because otherwise it's illogical. If you're just going in there to kill or abduct, you want out of there as quickly as possible. So there has to be something that is associated with that house or her that needed to be talked about privately. That's another reason why you would use another agent to do it, because she's going to know your voice if you do it yourself, if she's encountered you before, kind of thing. What do you guys think about that? About my point that this 41 minutes is probably going to turn out to be the most important thing in the whole story. I mean, what the heck went on in there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it strikes at the heart of motive, and we can't even speculate on that, because to their credit, the Pima County Sheriffs and the FBI have kept the information regarding what the interior of the house is like. They've kept that secret. And so which is really a good job maintaining the case specific information.
Agreed.
Question.
Yeah.
That's a solid piece. But everything, right? Again, we go back to the victimology and the victim risk continuum. Everything points to low risk, low risk, low risk for the victim. And then everything after that the suspect does points to high risk, high risk, high risk, which doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Everything. If he went there before to case the place, hypothetically, let's use that one photograph, right, with the dark behind it. They haven't told us the metadata. It could be the same night, but I don't know. I have a problem with how dark it is behind that guy. And the fact he doesn't have the backpack or the gun, but, could he have put her in the car? And, remember we talked about that weeks ago where, now he's got a management problem. Everything is a management problem with Miss Guthrie. Everything.
But Chris, doesn't the thinking along the risk continuum, doesn't the situation we're seeing here align more with someone who knew her?
Oh, of course.
Right.
So,
I mean,
well, not necessarily know her. They
Right.
know they cross paths with her,
Right.
i.e. the house. Okay. And that's why you cannot still take off anybody that's and you can't come out definitively and say, look, this person, that person, they're all off the plate. You can't do that. And the reason for that is obvious. Okay. When you get tunnel vision and you start focusing on certain things, let's use Ricky in the Elizabeth Smart case. He's an RSO. He lived a couple of miles from the family, etc. He fit the mold of what the investigators felt he fit. And then all of a sudden, Elizabeth's sister goes, no, it's the painter. And next thing you know it, everything is, you're in left field. Now everybody's in right field. I think that's what's going to happen in this case. And that's why it's best. Remember, where that, the terminology, a person of interest, started right after the Atlanta bombing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Because
Richard
persons of
Jewell.
interest didn't exist when we were working murders. That you
Right.
were either a suspect or you weren't.
Right. And so a person of interest, that verbiage created itself during the Atlanta bombing. And they crucified that guy.
Richard Jewell. Yeah.
Richard Jewell. Yep. And so it's best just to, again, go back to fundamentals, basics, and you can keep the beast in one room, i.e. the media and the YouTubers. You can keep them in one room and have a briefing maybe twice a week, once a week, whatever it is. They'll keep their cameras there and they'll stay set up until the sheriff comes out and says, okay, here, or the PIO, here's what we have. Okay. But they never did that from the beginning. And now it's, just kind of, I don't know, it just feels discombobulated, disconnected. But the good news is we saw that the FBI and everybody thought people thought that was all just the FBI the other day. No, if you look at the guy to the right, he's got his badge, but it's a star.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the female walking around with the clipboard, she clearly has a hat that says FBI. Okay. The guy on the right is from Pima County Sheriff's Department. He's an investigator and he's on that task force. And so is that gal. And they've probably been told, go out, start, kissing babies, shaking hands and seeing what's out there. So let me grab a couple of questions. They're starting to stack up. I got 42 of them here. So I want to kind of keep this.
Well, Chris, we didn't mention, and I just wanted, did you see the development today that they found a utility box that looked like it had been tampered with in the neighborhood? I was just curious if you had any thoughts on it, because it's the latest of the,
Noise.
Oh, you're not interested in that.
I wouldn't be if I was the case agent. I mean, because again, it goes back towards this concept of, why you're going to chase. I would assign somebody to go find out. But personally, as a case agent, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on that.
Right.
Because what if he's just targeting one house? Why are you knocking out the entire neighborhood? And then why are you walking up and putting a bush on if you're that sophisticated to knock out the entire neighborhood, the bush isn't going to work on the camera. It doesn't make sense if it, doesn't
unless he's doing something that we're not unaware of that was more sophisticated than we think.
But what could he be doing, Gary?
That could be. Well, one person in the audience said that they thought that it was a type of foliage that has a very sturdy stem that could be used to pop something off or toy with the device or something. It didn't look like that to me. It looked like he was able to break it very easily. I'm a plant person, and there are some plants that you can break with your fingers very easily. Break the petiole or the
but
stem.
then why are you carrying what potentially could be a kill kit?
Yeah, I mean, you're going there, and at the last second, your intent is to disable the camera,
Right.
but you don't take a screwdriver
Yeah. Right.
with you.
Right.
Now, this might all be performance on his part. You
Yeah.
know, look at me, I'm a goof. But as far as the utility box, if this guy didn't have a screwdriver to address the camera, what's he going to do in a utility box?
Amen.
I mean, yes, you would have, yes, absolutely. Chris nailed it. You would have a detective go and eliminate it just simply to do due diligence. But I wouldn't look at it as being the oh my God, this is going to change the course of the case.
Yeah, I mean, and if you do the link analysis thought process, what John's just talking about, if he's smart enough to disconnect the utility box, but dumb enough to not try to figure out how to disconnect a camera at the front porch, okay, I don't know. Again, we go back to Scooby-Doo and,
Right.
pulling the mask off. Look, it's Mr. Stevens.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but Chris, in profiling, when there is that much of a disconnect in what you're seeing, you think of the possibility that either somebody went from organized to disorganized because of circumstances, or that there were two different or more different psychologies there. And I think part of the reason it doesn't add up is it's probably more than one person. And so somebody is bright and somebody isn't. And or multiple people aren't, or that kind of thing. The other thing is, just before we go to questions, that I just want to get a clear answer on, because I'm asked about it sometimes by reporters and things. Do we agree that this is not a situation where some precipitating event occurs, earlier in the day, and then you decide you're going to throw together an outfit and go do this? This is something that would have taken weeks, if not months, of planning. And the people that are involved in this had to have been talking someplace. I mean, it's not like they got together at the local library and had a chat about it. There must have been some sneaky way that they were communicating. And I don't know if that would have been by burner phones or some kind of encryption or whatever, but there had to be some sophistication in terms of how they were chatting and making financial arrangements and all of that. And, I'm really interested in that, that I think we're going to discover that there was chatter going on for some time in a really sneaky way, which again, doesn't speak to an idiot.
To dovetail on what you're thinking about, Gary, it reinforces, I think, for my thinking about the perpetrator, this guy knew every move Nancy made.
Hence the comfort.
Well, or hence the relationship.
Yeah, right.
Every single move Nancy made, this person was aware of it. To spend all of that time, to your point, in understanding how they're going to do it, they first in order to understand why the hunter pulls the trigger on the deer, they go out and they buy a tag to hunt. Then they put the tree stand up.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go get the corn and they throw it out. And then they observe. They may put up some trail cams and they watch all the deer show up. But the tag says you can't pull the trigger yet, or it would be illegal. So then they get a little frustrated, okay? And they get all of this idea that says, dang it, I'm getting close to hunting season. And so what do? They take all their gear out. And you women out there that have husbands who are hunters for food know exactly what I'm talking about. That hunter's blood pressure goes up. Their pupils dilate. They start getting excited. they go back out to the area to see what kind of deer are coming and what kind of deer are coming for the bait. They sit up in the trees and they watch them for days and days and days. Okay. And then they go back home. They may create their own ammo. In fact, the best hunters pack their own rounds. Right, Bob?
That's correct. Yeah.
And they're getting in the anticipation of all of this going down. All of this going down is getting closer and closer and closer. And then all of a sudden, the state says, hunting season. And they're up in that tree before you know it, or they're behind that mount up in the mountains looking for that one deer that's going to put their head down at the right moment. And then the shot's going to be taken. That's what this guy did.
Well, that's why I don't buy the stories where they were actually targeting someone else and, walked into the wrong house. Remember the story, like they were going after the gem dealer who had gems in the house, but they went into this house by mistake. I don't think so. I think that there was intel going on, the drives up to the house late at night, things like that for a little while. And the thing that's so haunting to me is that if we're right, that somebody that crossed paths with her was involved, there would have been some time that the person was acting like a very nice person to this woman, knowing that she had an expiration date.
Yeah. And this,
that's what's so horrible, right? I mean, somebody, and that's why I keep saying is I picture the person saying, come on, I'll help you, take my arm. Oh, don't forget your cane. Oh, whatever. And that there's a kind of a Judas in this nest somewhere, and that's what's so disturbing.
Well, that's why Nancy,
somebody that did the garden, you know what I mean? Who knows? But somebody knew her.
That's why everything in the risk continuum tells us that's going to be the problem. Okay, ultimately, whatever that means, right? But that's why Nancy was targeted. She was targeted.
Oh yeah.
And this tells us a lot about his predatory behavior. Coming in, just forget the fact that he was successful. I guarantee you the investigation is focusing on the pre-incident behavior. That's where you're out looking for where'd the backpack come from, where'd the mask come from, yada, yada, yada. And you start putting all those pieces of the puzzle together, and then you get to the house. Okay, is there a car involved? Or is there more than one person involved? And if so, that chatter conversation. What do we have for a digital footprint? Do we have anything coming in, even back into January? What was happening before? All of those investigative steps are all about pre-incident behavior. It's not about the abduction.
Right.
It's about what took place before the abduction, because we know what the abduction is. They have all of that evidence, and they're keeping it close to their chest. Okay, what the crime scene looks like, what John was talking about, et cetera. And now we get to the secondary phase of this, post-incident behavior, which, Fitz and the BAU and all those guys.
Very important. Very important.
All of that stuff is important about this guy. Okay. But really, what was important to the guy on the porch? And we don't even know, again, we keep going back, at least in my head, I don't even know if she made it home.
And we discussed that from the very outset, Chris.
Okay.
We don't know that guy wasn't said. I mean, at some point she had to have been in the house because of the blood spattering both outside and, as Maureen reported, inside is her blood.
Yep.
But there's no calendar date. There's no timer next to it saying when that blood was deposited. And as we've been talking here, it almost seems to me as if the guy wearing the mask and trying to use the little, fragile foliage to block the camera. it's almost as if he was a stooge employed to say, hey, everybody, look at this guy. And the real people are going in and out the back door.
Yeah. And right. And we don't even know if the hunter was already on scene in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When she did, let's play that out, right? She gets home, everybody drops her off. We have all those times. Now she's in the house and the hunter's already there. When we're only talking about 41 minutes, but for all we know, it could have been 2 hours.
Well, everything that's being described here suggests, because these are definitely people that would be very suspicious, if not paranoid people, who would know to always be looking over their shoulder. And it suggests that there was some capacity for intimacy and trust between these people. In other words, I wouldn't be surprised if they had worked together in some other endeavor at some point in life, because do you realize how much you'd have to trust the person and the loyalty that would be necessary? Keep your mouth shut if you ever get caught, whatever. In other words, this isn't just money. If it was money, the person would have already been thrown under the bus for the $1 million reward.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Right.
something that suggests to me these people have had a trusting dynamic somewhere else.
Well, and that may be 1,000%. And that's why, again, we've all discussed this guy in LA. No, I'm not saying he's involved. Don't misunderstand me.
We don't know who's involved, right?
Well, what I'm saying is that's the kind of guy you would want to go, why are you involved?
Yeah. Why did you force yourself into, the most famous crime case on the globe right now, and you decide that, well, here's something I want to do. I will insert myself into this investigation, and maybe the FBI will come and grab me. It's either reckless, or he hadn't thought it through. He's the anomaly, part of a major anomaly to this.
Yeah, he's the one-off that all of us here would put up on another sheet of paper on the wall in the war room and go, okay, so let's figure this out first before we figure out the other pieces of the puzzle. Because if in fact you can figure that out, and if it was connected, guess what? He's your weakest link. Okay? He's the guy that you're going to sit down, as John has done many times, and say, we've got door number 1 or door number 2. And by the way, the public wouldn't even know about it. Nothing. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely nothing. But don't you think, and of course they did it, but don't you think it's also an anomaly that this guy lives in Hawthorne, California, gets caught and arrested by the feds in California, the FBI, and all of a sudden he's hustled over to Tucson?
Well,
and I know we can do that, Bob, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. We've talked about this off camera, but he's got to be brought back here because this is where the charges are filed, in the District of Arizona.
Okay.
So it's a federal case.
But could they have charged him in LA?
Well, they arraigned him in federal court in Santa Ana. They arraigned him there.
He can make an initial appearance out of district, but I guarantee you the marshals, U.S. Marshals, once he was arraigned, was transported him back to Tucson. And so that's who has jurisdiction. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona has the case. They're the ones that are charging him. And that's why he's brought back. Now, there could be a secondary reason, which is to your point, and I think you're spot on with that, because they rushed him back here, is my understanding, within a couple of days. And I can tell you that, yeah, sometimes that happens on your average case, but sometimes it doesn't happen, and it takes a little while. When you go into the custody of the U.S. Marshal Service, a lot of it just depends on when the next transport is, and so forth. And I don't want to say too much about that, but
right.
not everything happens that quickly. And so, it's kind of interesting. And
You want to be near, you want to, when the volcano is exploding, Kilauea Iki, you want to be near the lava where it's hot. Okay. And you want access. The scientists need access to test the lava, sometimes. But, and for the record, everybody in the chat, we're not saying that guy is involved.
did anything. Yeah.
We're just saying it's an anomaly from an investigative experience where you go, wow, look, Scooby-Doo, it's Mr. Stevens. Okay. And you go, wow. Okay. And so let's grab some of these questions because they're stacking up here. All right, gentlemen, Paul Hull suggests, and Paul Hull's a great investigator. Actually, show porch guy was staging his incompetent criminal costume included. What do you think?
Certainly a real possibility.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yep. Denise, Mama, behave yourself.
Wait, Chris, I would just add to that think about what that would suggest about the personality of the person involved. It would have the secondary quality of that instead of it just being about, let's say, money or something else, that the person would be someone who was getting off on outsmarting people. And I said that all along, that there is this flavor of arrogance to this person, where they seem to do things that are a little unnecessary because they really like the admiration. You remember I made the joke about the man from space on the Honeymooners, whatever. It's funny, that comment got me thinking about Jackie Gleason, and I started reading a biography about him. And he told a story that was quoted in there that fascinated me, that what got him interested in acting was he went to go see a show one day in a theater. He's in like a dark theater, and everybody at the end of the show, they're applauding. And he accidentally turned around and was facing the people who were clapping at the audience. And for the first time in his life, he felt like people loved him because he had a mother he adored and she died, and his father was out of the picture and the whole thing. And in the dark, there were all these people clapping. And he said, my God, it's an intoxicating feeling. And then went on to become an actor. There's something about the starvation for attention that can be very revealing about a person's psychology. And I can't help but think there's a whiff of that in here. The sense that has something to do in the motive here. Because otherwise, if you just wanted money.
Not needing to be on a stage?
Yeah. In other words, if you just wanted money, there would have been a lot easier of a way to do this. Why do you have to do it in a way that's going to go down in the annals of crime, or outsmarts people, or where you do these extra things, or you can't resist giving a big long speech to the old woman that you're about to abduct or kill or whatever? In other words, there's something else going on here. And that's why I think there's a personal element underneath the financial, that because too big of a risk was incurred. It's the same way, in life, when a person really loves you, that they take unnecessary risks and do extras that you wouldn't do if you didn't really care. Well, the same thing is true of offenders. All the extras reveal that they care about something. Otherwise, you wouldn't take the time to do it. Because ultimately, isn't this a very practical creature who couldn't give a damn about this woman? So why all the extra? And I just think it has that flavor to it. Mark my words.
Okay.
Don't you guys all feel it too?
Oh, I agree.
We'll see.
Tension.
John, what do you think of this one?
My question is, if they know who did it, which I think they do, what is the proverbial pew-pew besides DNA that Ellie needs? I don't know that they may suspect who did it, but if they had a DNA hit, what they would be looking for is some sort of corroborative evidence, because DNA all by itself is insufficient. And you could, particularly if this is a person who has had some contact with Ms. Guthrie, the presence of DNA would not necessarily be evidence of wrongdoing.
Yeah, great point. And that's why that other outside influence would be really important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, door number 2 is, by the way, we're going to need your testimony. That would be a good pew pew, right? Bothered by time and home. I have 5 cameras, no subscription, but families still receive alerts and can view live feed. How did they know an alert or live feed hadn't happened? That's a great question. And I'm sure that data point exists. And we've asked that same question about the garage, how they got into the house the next morning, how folks got in. My apologies if this has been asked. No need to apologize. But did Nancy have a dog? If so, where is the dog? My understanding, she did have a dog, but it had passed away in December.
Cancer, I thought they said.
Yeah. Front door man has a tattoo across on his wrist. Pause and look in cracking gay mode. You can see the across the shades. Yes, I saw that from one of the other YouTube channels.
What is hold on? What is cracking game mode? I'm not familiar.
I don't know. It just open space within a tattoo. Has anyone considered she wasn't the target? Some nearby homes were leased to wholesale buyers in gems. Yes, we have considered that, but we believe she was the target. But we could be wrong. No question. Always could be wrong. As a Dallas native, I am still waiting for Amber Hagerman to be solved. It haunts us. And now also Missy Beavers. Yeah, Missy Beavers is a really interesting case at the church where she was in the building by herself and then had, you see the suspect on video going through the hallways, and ultimately she was found and discovered in that church. Actually, I did a whole program on it. You can watch it on my playlist about Missy Beavers. That'd be a good one we should take up. It's still unsolved. I agree with sleuth intuition channel theory. The crime occurred at the door, camera, and then transported in or out depending on veracity in. Okay, awesome. What would the cold case foundation first steps be if you were involved in the investigation? Please accept a forward of the proceeds of Super Chat as a donation to the foundation. Thank you. I will. The first thing the Cold Case Foundation would do is sit down with everybody in the investigation and get a debriefing from them and ask them, who are your first 5 suspects? That would be the very first thing. And from there, through an investigative analysis aspect, it's been called 2 different ways, CIA or BIA, behavioral investigative analysis or criminal investigative analysis aspect. We would break it down and then get the investigators' opinions as to why they feel these 5 individuals belong on the list. And then you start from there. Could Ellie be dealing with abductor behind the scenes? Praying Nancy is still alive somehow. You guys are great. I love seeing and listening to my Dr. B. We do too. We do too. Absolutely. At a crime scene, what happens first, fingerprint or DNA testing?
DNA testing. You'll obliterate it. You will. I mean, there are so many different methods for the fingerprinting that the stuff will destroy DNA material. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you got it. Dusting for fingerprints could potentially corrupt. It wouldn't necessarily wipe the DNA, but it would corrupt the sample.
Yeah, and the Mr. Beavers thing too, by the way, I actually went to the church. I have video of it. So if anybody's interested, they can go and watch my coverage of that. And there was a surveillance video of a car going through the parking lot. But anyway, that's another crime. At a crime, okay, you already answered that, John. Got it. Wouldn't the pacemaker have went offline at the time they say camera went off then? Didn't her pacemaker transmit with Bluetooth? Court Lurker. Love that. Love your pup. Or is that a bear? He looks like a bear. That's a great. Yes. Whenever it disconnected from the Bluetooth is when it went off, and they have that data point. Could the tarp have been disabled? Could the perp have disabled the camera right before leaving? Since Nancy couldn't climb the pony wall, they'd need the front exit and didn't want the abduction caught on video. Annie. You know what? She went out. She had to somehow, if she went out that door, her blood's there. She could have fallen, and that could have explained some of that blood. I would be curious to know if Angie or TC had their cell phones on them the night way back to the house, as would I, Raven Gypsy. New Jersey here, Auntie Ray. Coverage of this case is amazing, particularly the breadth and wealth of intelligence. Greatly appreciated and eagerly anticipated. Thank you. We appreciate you being here very, very much, and that's very kind. If the pick was from a different night, Nancy would have been notified. Even without a subscription, she would have seen a notification saying someone was at her door. Ellie would have seen it on her phone. Okay. And you want to know an interesting thing about that is the sheriff, I believe, at one point had said they found her phone, but he put it in two different locations. He put it once in the car, and he put once in the bedroom. Go watch the press releases or the press conferences. Bob, good point about pretending to be foolish and misconceiving. L.E. How much of his posture and walk can be faked not to be recognized? Is that far-fetched?
No, it's not far-fetched at all. I think it's very possible he intentionally walked different and mannerisms different.
The only problem is if this is the type of offender that I envision, it would bother him that people were out there thinking he was stupid. Eventually, he'd have to say, I did that on purpose. I did that on purpose. Because the ego would get to you. You know, it's the same technique you use when you interview certain offenders. You purposely say things are boneheaded and you state them wrong so they'll correct you. You know, you go, oh, we think you might have killed this person, and you throw in one that they had that would be beneath them, you know, to be responsible for, and they go, I didn't do that one. You go, okay, then you did the others. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? It's a technique that you could use with this type, you know, the type that I think this is. So that's why I think that whatever snare they're trying to set, they've got to use ego to catch the person.
Okay. If a citizen finds a clue that leads to the suspect, is there concern the clue loses probative value since not found by LE? Actually, no. All the DA has to do is put the citizen on the stand and lay the foundation for how that item was found and who they notified when they found it. Think of this. Think of throwing a magnet over a bridge and coming up with a weapon. And they discover through ballistics matches that weapon was used in multiple crimes. All you have to do is put that guy on the stand. I recall people in chat saying 6 weeks ago, awesome. There is a drone in the backpack. It's gone from a drone to a tarp to it's Mr. Stevens. Anyway, the abduction.
I still think it was a tarp, Chris.
Yeah, well, to me, like it was.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, right? We won't know until he opens it up and tells us, or tells us where it's at. You know. Anyway, the abduction of M could have been an intuition or rite of passage of some gang. Probably not. Too high risk.
Well, you're asking for far too. I mean, a gang initiation usually is go rob somebody, go beat somebody up, or you get beaten up by the entire gang. That tends to be the extent of the initiations we would see from most of the gangs we encounter.
What way will AI change investigations? Primarily through the sifting of information. That will be the biggest change. You will be able to put many reports into it simultaneously and ask, where are the anomalies? And that will be the primary thing. And you know, the sheriff talked about, well, there's 100,000 cars. Okay. Guys, gals, look up the company BriefCam for me at some point when you get a chance. Okay. Yeah, they've got a new name now. They're an Israeli company. They were just bought. BriefCam is a system that can sort through. All you have to do is put in blue car. And within 5 minutes, you will have 10,000 blue cars. And then the next search parameter will be blue car 1:47 in the morning. That will narrow it down to 5 blue cars at 1:47 in the morning. That software has existed for almost 15 years now. Okay. The sheriff is throwing the public a curveball. It does not take it does not take long to sift through 100,000 cars. Forget it. It's a myth. Okay. The BriefCam was used in the Las Vegas shooting to count where the rounds hit. That's artificial intelligence. It's an Israeli company, and it was military technology that came into law enforcement about 10, 15 years ago. So this 100,000 thing, that's how AI is changing the world. Okay? So that's
it also counted the number of shots too, because that was a mystery in the Las Vegas shooting.
Great point, Bob. Great point. Gary,
That
what's
a high school? I went to high school with the shooter in Las Vegas.
Did you really?
Yeah, he was a grade in front of me. Yeah, but yeah,
Man, that's another story.
That's what the high school's famous for now.
Yes, and silicone masks are very, very realistic. Thank you. Could it be that they have a suspect quietly? Yes.
But Chris, you were about to ask me something.
What was the name of the new company that bought BriefCam? Do you know it? Did you look it up?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I have it. One of my friends is the director of business development. Tim, if you're listening, I just gave you guys a plug. Almost as if he forgot, he told to break the camera. Yeah, exactly. Hey, don't forget, add that to the script. Break the camera and action. Yes, thank you. This is not his first break-in. He was too calm, like he had career in his world. Yeah, and that'd be the kind of guy you may want to hire, potentially. I don't know. Is there a way to colorize the infrared images they did in the 1800s using the surrounding known colors as some sort of matrix math formula from the pixels? Thanks. Epic room tonight. Thank you so much. There's got to be, but I don't know how to do that. It's been theorized on other channels he is wearing a black mask underneath. Okay, love it. In my opinion, he used the stem to pop the camera. Okay, the only problem with that is the camera's still there when he walked away. Let's see here. Did NG have knowledge or something and had to be silenced? Maybe.
Possible.
That's what Gary alluded to in part.
Right, with the elimination murder idea.
He was staging. She wasn't there. Definitely a theory.
Yeah.
Yep.
41 man cleaning. Could man on porch be cleanup guy?
Didn't do a good job if he was.
Jason, chat question about AI is used by LE search mechanisms to pinpoint specific elements of footage. Yes. Tools enhancing video and audio, internal databases with scenarios and past cases providing tips. Absolutely. There are lots of single plates of glass, as they call it, that do that. Most of those technologies are in fusion centers. Who was the fourth major player Saturday night? Great question. Maybe the Sun. I'm interested to know what activity NG pacemaker showed at the time of her intrusion, as well as for the whole 41 minutes. We are too. Thank you. Thank you, Leah Hansen. Bad guy may have read the literature. Nest security is which it won't film vegetation to allow focus on moving objects. Is that what the literature says? That's interesting. Interesting. I wonder why they would say that in the literature. Note to self, do not install camera with weeds. If you don't have timestamp video of entry or exit, how do they know he was inside 41 minutes? Well, because if we went by the data points the sheriff did release, then that adds up to 39 to 41 minutes. I just sent 2 tweets, thread a picture of my theory. Perhaps Karen can share it with Chris. Thank you, Jeff. We'll take a look. IR night vision wouldn't detect blood. Did he approach camera from left to avoid blood? Foliage is on top of blood, not vice versa, indicating Nancy was gone. Yes, but when he's walking up to the porch, you'll notice he's peeking to the left. I think he's looking through that side window.
That's certainly what the posture would tend to indicate.
Yeah, and I totally agree that the items are on top of the blood. We saw that as well. Could the ring have been a new installment, therefore not expected? Great question.
Well, Nancy had them installed, I think, 1.5 years or 2 years ago. That was the reporting. And I think Brian Enton reported that, so it's probably credible. He got it from somebody connected.
Could pull camera first time at door, realizing his glove was too tight. Make arch with foliage to hook on camera to pull off. A twig was left on the mat. Yeah,
the
but
foliage just doesn't look sturdy enough to do that.
Here he's pointing directly at the camera with the grass in his hand. So I don't think he's trying to pull the camera off with the grass. That's just my opinion, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I just think it's fascinating how we're all bending over backwards to try to come up with a more complicated explanation than that he was just dumb. I mean, isn't the simplest explanation that it was just a stupid thing to do, and that's the end? Like, why do we have to come up with a more fascinating explanation? You know what I mean? Don't you think so? I mean, it's just a dummy. He took plants and tried to.
Well, let me
cover up the
we'll just jump to the conclusion of he's plant life.
Right.
There you go.
Well, there you go. No, but it's this whole thing of like, oh, he's playing 3D chess. No, he isn't. He picked up a plant and held it in front of a camera. I mean, that's it. There's nothing. This is not Bobby Fischer.
Hi, guys. Great panel. If any of you asked to take over the case and you guys accepted, how would you start your investigation and where at?
Well, you covered that where you would have everybody sit down.
Everybody's got to be on the same sheet of music. First and foremost, you can't have any egos and you can't have any agendas. You have to have 4 people like this agree to disagree or agree collectively or disagree collectively. And that's how you make progress. And everybody has an opinion. Everyone. And you move an investigation forward by all of those opinions counting, not just one, like Bob talked about earlier and John. No egos. Check your ego at the door. You'll solve the case. Perhaps the call from Tisha was encrypted. Crime went wrong, but still pay up. Perhaps a threat to say that was us and that will happen to you. That's a great point.
But just to be clear, we do agree there must have been some very clever way of communicating between a bunch of people for a long time before this was dared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there had to have been, either they had to have met in person in places where they
apps.
would have been noted.
Right.
Could be encrypted apps somewhere.
Well, that's what I want to know. What do you think law enforcement might have looked at to consider that possibility? How would people communicate in a way that would be difficult to detect? Could have conversations that were more than a few seconds long.
I don't know, online game platforms. I know that they chat during the games. I mean, this is what I've read. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Well, there's a lot of encryption apps out there. I mean, Signal, a lot of apps that, it just disappears. Snapchat, etc. Now, Snapchat, not as much, believe it or not. People think it does, but it doesn't. And I'm not going to name the other ones.
Right.
There's a lot of encryption apps that, first of all, I think we have to all come to the conclusion we're all somewhat cyborgs.
Right. They're just not in our brains. We're like a step away from cyborg. Yeah.
Right. I mean, but isn't this in your brain? It's the last thing you check before you go to bed. I'll guarantee it.
Well, I had someone say to me the other day, "Why should I learn math? I've got this thing right next to me to solve it for me." And there's a little truth to that.
And there was a study recently, and Dr. Brucato, you'll know more than anybody on this panel, that this generation, their IQ is lower than the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because intelligence is about more than just memorizing factoids. It's also about critical thinking.
Right. And
it's like the things that people say are just absolutely unbelievable. Where like you can watch that they don't understand how to use logic, and it scares me. Yeah, it really does. But I guess I was just curious about that because I think law enforcement must be thinking that the key to this case is going to be the technology, the phones, the vehicle, the way that people communicate, all that, because there's going to be a trace somewhere. Nobody's that good.
Yeah, and do you realize everybody on this panel that we're the last generation on Earth that knows what it's like before social media? That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I miss the days before social media. I really do.
Right.
And when I didn't know everything about everyone I know, like, I didn't have to wake up in the morning and see that somebody posted a status. Remember when Facebook had the status messages? They still do that? I haven't been on there and it would say things like, "I ate cake for breakfast. I had a bowel movement." Like, who cares? Like, I don't understand why I have to care about. You know what I mean? It's like everybody thinks everything they do is important. It's I can't stand it.
It's crazy.
Some people live their lives through it.
And that they call the people who pay attention to them followers, like as if they're like little popes or something. Like they have a religion. I have 100,000 followers. Okay, you and Jim Jones.
So we have 32 questions. We're almost there. This one's for you.
Okay.
Ted Kaczynski type loner. Dr. Gary has broken this guy down extensively in some of our other videos, but the answer is Gary in 30 seconds or less, the Reader's Digest version. What's this guy going to be all about when they catch him?
Well, I don't think he's a loner because he had to cooperate with some other people, I think, in order to do this. I just think he's the type that if he has a goal, can do some very heartless and awful things in order to achieve it and feels entitled to do it for some reason that will make sense psychologically later, some deprivation, some sense of, narcissism, something that gives a person a sense that if they want something, they have a right to just knock somebody out of the way to get it. And I also think there's a sadistic quality to this individual, which probably will manifest in a lot of ways. So I think we're going to find out that this is a two-faced person who, when the mask comes off, could be really very nasty, but can also be very loyal to the people that know him. But we'll see.
Setting up the trust part of the perp. Thank you, Tracy. I remember trust is shared. It is not earned. You share trust, you don't earn trust. Love and light. Thank you so much. Back at you, my friend. Thank you. Let's see here. If you haven't already, recommend watching Sleuth Intuition and Monk's Integrity theory about the cult. Yep. I've seen it all. I've watched it, and it's very interesting. Very interesting. And I'm not the type of channel that, jumps up and down with you pitching other channels. Okay. Could he have been in a house so long to try to get Nancy's combo to a safe full of jewelry? I don't know, but apparently he didn't take anything, according to the sheriff.
Yeah.
I think if Nancy passed, Perp would have offed himself. He's a loner. Nobody knows him. Ted Kaczynski, being on tip line call if Perp is gone. Do you know why I disagree with that? He's too proud.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, am I off base?
And not only that, the thing about Ted Kaczynski is even though he was technically a serial killer, not a sexually motivated one, but he was a serial killer. I hate to say it, but the thing is, he believed in something. The motivation for Ted Kaczynski was that he was obsessed with an environmental cause and was mission oriented. This person doesn't believe in anything. I mean, I'm not praising in any way Ted Kaczynski, don't get me wrong. I just think he became fanatical about something that he was preoccupied with and took it very far. This person, no. This person's God is his own ego.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting stuff. There's no question about it. You know who else had this stuff 30 days ago? He did a deep dive, was JLR Investigates. That guy is amazing when it comes to finding information about people. And I know everybody's like, well, he's ex-felon and all this other stuff. Well, okay, fine. But he paid his dues to society. Let's move on. He's doing something that he feels is positive. I don't have anything negative to say about a guy. In fact, for 40 plus years, everybody on this panel has dealt with former people that have been in the system. And I guarantee you, whenever you put somebody in the car, it's easier to talk them into the car than beat them into the car. I like talking to people, and you gain that respect because when they come out, I can tell you, I even have letters. Gary has letters. Bob, John has letters from people who are incarcerated. And you know what they say? Thank you for treating me with respect. Okay? That's all we do. That's a great thing. But yes, so to your point, Michael Sausalito, we don't know how long it was in the house. He may have stayed outside for 40 minutes or more. Very interesting point. But we know he was probably there, you would agree, for at least 40 minutes, right? In or out of the house. Look at NG's Facebook friends. There's a male with the first initial C. A name starts with MC. Okay. Cis by the eye. Okay. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate you so much. Let's see here. Regarding a super chat about motion alerts, it's a good point. There is a lot to consider, which tells a lot about the case from a tech perspective. I would love to elaborate on that note. Okay? We'll have to put that together. Thank you. With the vagueness from LA, what is the possibility she was okay? Helps explain a full backpack, easily removed, easily discarded.
There'd be a great deal of blood.
Hmm.
And you would, and you would not, there would be so much blood, and you couldn't get the body into a backpack.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I've studied dismemberment extensively with Ann Burgess and Victor Petrecka at Boston College. In fact, if you Google dismemberment, even if you look in Wikipedia, we came up with the definition of how it's distinguished from mutilation. We've studied it that extensively that people have started to use our terminology. And it actually is a harder process than people think. And it takes a long time also. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think so. Do any of you think so? I don't think. I think she was intact, alive or deceased, but intact when she was.
And there's indication she was alive.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and the thing is, why do you, looking at it purely, and I hate to sound so cold about this, there's the issue of logistics. You complicate the issue of moving a body by cutting it up, taking the time to do so. How do you package it? It's not actually easier to get it out to the car that way. And so I think it's unlikely.
It's improper. What is the Chris? What made you say that there was evidence that she was alive?
Probably the aspiration on the porch.
The way the blood, as you observe it, is suggestive of a living person.
It's suggestive of a cough. You get, because the particles of blood get, so that's what they would call high velocity asphyxiation. So it's like like that.
Right.
Okay, but you have to be close to the ground to get that type of mist and that type of spray. Okay, we've seen it all. I've seen it. Everybody in this room has seen it that 100 times.
So are you suggesting something like the firearm is used to kind of herd her to the vehicle, but she falls or coughs or hits her head or something like that happens during this march?
My first impression when I saw the photographs, and you guys tell me what you were thinking, is that he was trying to get her out the door. She's probably in front of him. I think she fell somehow, because remember, she walks with a cane. Okay, she's probably disoriented. You know, it's early in the morning, and she trips over her threshold. Okay, and this is a theory. I could be wrong. She gets down, and at some point, as she's trying to get back up, okay, she may have been on her hands and knees, and that's where you get the straight down 90-degree blood, the droplets. Okay, and then you get the satellite blood that drops inside of the droplets that create its, like a little splash. Like, just think of an eyedropper over a pond and go like, or in your, sink in a cup, go like that. And as the blood hits, or as the water hits, it creates this wave. Okay, boom, like that. Well, with blood, when you drop it straight down, the wave is created like this, out, in and out. Okay, it doesn't surface like a regular wave. It creates a splash. Okay, well, those droplets, okay, are not from bubbles, okay, of spitting blood out. Okay, those are 90-degree droplets, meaning you had to be either standing or directly over where that blood drops.
And stationary.
And stationary. You can't be moving. Okay.
Yeah, but Chris, coughing and so forth would imply that your mouth was not impeded or covered. And the thing is, no 84-year-old woman being taken out of a house, particularly with a fall, would not scream. I mean, I saw somebody, an elderly person,
don't know that, right?
And she let out a sound that sounded like, like I was in hell. It's an unbelievable thing to imagine no noise. Wouldn't the neighbors have heard her screaming and come out? Or do you think she was unconscious somehow?
No, I mean, fear, right? To your point, fear is a very powerful tool. And if you're 84 years old and you wake up and there's some guy in a mask over your bed at, whatever time it was, and he's got a gun, or at least you perceive he's got a gun, and he takes that gun and sticks it in your mouth and says, "Shut up, or you're dying right here."
Right.
Okay.
Well, that I can understand, but gagged I couldn't, if we think that the blood came out of the mouth.
And Gary, there's even a possibility that she thought, even at that, let's just speculate that she recognized her assailant.
Yes, that's.
She's going to scream if she thinks that she can still talk this guy out of doing what he's doing.
Right.
So that's a possibility also.
That's a really good point. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm not taking into consideration the idea that you could just be terrified.
Yes.
I think, Chris, you're right. You could just be terrified, but I just, that point just bothers me, that if you're in the house and some terrible thing is happening to you, and then suddenly the door is open and you're out there in the night. I mean, I could picture, like, for myself, I could picture trying in some way to, especially if I thought that somebody was going to kill me.
You see,
But I could understand
when we
the
look at the blood here for a moment, if you look at, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Hang on for a minute. Can you see my cursor moving? I don't think so. But let's look down at the bottom here. This looks like a transfer of some sort. Maybe a foot impression, maybe, something either from her and or the suspect. We don't know. Okay. This down at the bottom in this lower tile. If you look we go up towards the mat where all this debris is here. Okay. You see I don't know if you can see my cursor moving. Okay,
Barely.
up here, just barely. Okay. You see this debris over top the blood. Now that could be caused by a couple of things. It could be caused that the suspect is kicking it or she's kicking it. But first she had to bleed. Okay. And
Right.
this, you see how perfectly almost elliptical these droplets are. Okay. They're almost like circular in nature, right? This one over
there for a second, Chris, are you suggesting, or this could happen while moving quickly?
No, she's not moving.
So that's what I'm wondering. So she's got to sort of be stationary for a second.
Yeah, you would see the blood spiking in the direction if it was moving, like a little arrow. It would show you this is stationary, a 90-degree drop.
And so then we look at this big, unit of blood here, right? Okay. See how misty this blood is? Like it's got a solid core, okay? But look how small the droplets are. It's like, just take some water in your mouth and then cough with that water and watch how the droplets dissipate really small when they hit something. And this is what we would call high velocity asphyxiation, meaning she's doing one of those things, maybe a cough. Okay. This would be indicative of somebody coughing to me. Okay. And now, could it be something else? Could it be a rag and you throw the rag down? That's possible too, because you're going to get, some high, remember the velocity of throwing it, okay, is equal to the velocity of coughing. Okay. Whenever you've been next to your family member and they cough and you get that mist and you go, what the heck, dude? Why are you doing that? Okay. That's what this is potentially evidence of. Okay. This is why I think all of us on this panel from the very beginning have said, hey, wait a minute. What's taking them so long to grab this, mat here? You see him in the picture standing on it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. This mat should have been collected the very first day. When they were photographing this, they shouldn't have just photographed it. They should have collected it. And it's still not in evidence, I don't think. Or maybe, the family hired a private investigator. This is where PIs can do a lot of great things. They can come in behind and collect this mat. And you just don't know, right? We just don't know. But this is indicative of somebody obviously injured. The blood has come back to Miss Guthrie. So we know for a fact it belongs to an 84-year-old woman who was taken out of her bed. Now, what does that tell us about the suspect? It tells us he has a management problem with an 84-year-old woman who's bleeding, okay, who needs medication, according to the sheriff, within 24 hours, or it could be life-threatening, quote unquote. So now you look at that, you look at this picture, and you know for a fact that this evidence exists on the porch. What we don't know is what exists inside of the house. We don't know what's inside the house.
And Maureen said that she had heard that there was similar blood droplets on the interior of the threshold. But that's, we don't know that for a fact, but I don't doubt her sources.
Yeah. And so what does that tell us? It tells us it's a slow moving train out of that house, i.e., let's pretend I'm moving. Give me a minute. I'm doing my best I can.
Right.
Okay, and we can go through that craziness all day long. We won't know until the suspect tells us, because that will be one of the questions in an interview.
Yeah,
so,
but
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought. No.
How'd you get her out?
Right.
And you sit back and you listen.
I can't wait till we get to that answer, because it would imply that this thing was cracked. But Chris, when the family members went there and didn't know what was going on, and then called police, who initially thought that it was a missing person, is the idea that they would had to have missed blood in the house? I mean, if you saw blood, you'd be calling up hysterically saying, "There's blood in the house, and my mother's not here. Somebody killed her. Somebody did something horrible to her." Yes, and I really want to hear that 911 call, unless you just didn't see it.
Well, if we go back to the very first press conference the sheriff did, and I streamed it, so anybody can go back and watch it. He said two things about the DNA. The first thing he said is, we have DNA, okay, and we've sent it out to a lab to be processed, okay? All right. Then when the results came back, he said, we know where the DNA's sources are. Okay. And that's where he said, it's Miss Nancy's. And then he also said something very interesting. And other family members where you would expect to see the DNA. You can go watch it. It's kind of one of these subtleties, okay? But then he qualified it with, however, we're hoping to get a sample to put into CODIS from an unknown source, a biological source. Now, to me, I went worst case scenario, and I told folks, man, is this an SA? Was this guy going in here to, violate her? And if so, what kind of other biological materials is there? Okay. I mean, it could be hair, it could be fiber, it could be snot, it could be saliva, it could be other things. Okay. There's a whole list.
Well, there are also offenders, Chris, who don't essay the victim.
Correct.
But become so, their adrenaline is pumping and they get so caught up in it that they either defecate or urinate or masturbate, and it has nothing to do with being aroused by the victim.
Right. A la Dennis Rader and the Otero family.
Right. There are victims who do. I mean, there are offenders who will do that.
Right. I agree.
But
the sheriff,
the sexual element and some arousal of some sort.
I hope that's not the case.
I hope not too. Yeah.
Okay. I hope that's not the case. Let's keep moving. I don't want to get too far off track. We're running out of time here. We're 3 hours. Man, I try to keep these. I've been, guys and gals in the chat, I've been trying to keep it, shorter, but I'm sorry. It's fun. Do they have tech that can harvest DNA from anyone? No, other than buccal swabs, and if you put your DNA into systems. But they do have tech that can find it. They can even find it off of rocks, shell casings, anything. It's come a long way. It's going to get harder and harder to be a killer in the next 10 years.
Thank God.
Yeah. I haven't seen the Uber driver talking to the media, describe Nancy, what she wore that day. What is your opinion? You know what bothered me was that blue item sitting outside in front of the house. when everybody was out front. If you go back and look at the original news footage, there is a blue, looks like a sweatshirt or some type of item.
Yeah, somebody said it belonged to Nancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was sitting out front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then when you see the U.S. attorneys standing in front of the house and the one guy standing out by the railing on the porch, they are spending time at that point of exit. So it's possible the suspect could have pointed or could have parked right in front of the house. That's possible because he was explaining why that was an important piece of their debrief. Remember, you see him on the porch and he's doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's talking about the blood. Okay. And then you see them walk out and then they're standing over by the steps. Okay, and he's talking about something there. May have been the blue item. We don't know. He's using the stem of the plant to stick the removal hole top side of the nest. This is how you popped off its base for charge model. Okay, thank you. Let's see. The pacemaker at a certain reach, when it's turned off, she may have already been in the car. We agree. It looks like he pushed the doorbell 2 times with his thumb. We thought that at first too. Bob actually, pointed that out. But to ring the doorbell that early in the morning, especially when she didn't have her hearing aids on, she probably would not have heard it. It looks like he pushed the doorbell. Got it? Barney is smart enough to throw a curveball. Could be.
Mm-hmm.
Barn isn't smart enough to throw a curveball. Should be. Porch guy, a satellite phone in pocket and portable SAT terminal in backpack so his accomplice could communicate in remote location.
Yeah.
Man, love it. Hello, gentlemen. I've always wondered that since it was mentioned that she had a traceable pacemaker, if that put her more in harm's way. No, it didn't. And don't worry, okay? You're not in harm's way either. Anybody that has them. Go ahead.
Chris, just real quick in the blue garment that you referred to, ME53 said it was belonged to Nancy and that they used it for a dog sniff early on when the deputies got there. And that's what I recall hearing too. So thank you, Emmy.
So they left it out in front of the house?
And they just left it. Yeah.
We'll get to that chapter later.
Yeah.
Maybe Angie wasn't the one who went in the garage. Maybe it was the driver and someone else at the front door hit her there and brought her in. That's possible. That is possible. Hey, can you please unblock Jay for Justice? Okay. Have her say good things. Don't be nasty sometimes. Maybe they were leaving rather than just arriving. Thank you. Let's see here. Someone mentioned Angie's Facebook friend, public enemy, or being public. Everyone, please protect your privacy on social media. There are lots to learn from this case. Thank you, Jason, as always. Could blood be staged with a ketchup bottle? No. But that's a great point. Thank you so much for gifting. We're so grateful. First, you got to get the blood into the ketchup bottle, and then you have to have enough of it to get the force, right? What's the old that adage, right? Has he over her shoulder knocked her out? Getaway driver. Okay. I don't know how she got out of the house. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you. We're so grateful to each and every one of you. I think they know who it is, and they're building a case. Totally agree. Blood looks staged, even to you. We love it. If she was in a tarp, why would there be blood droplets? Great point. And plus, you're having to manage a 150-pound bag of cement. That's a very difficult thing to do. And once the heart stops, guess what happens? The body starts freezing, i.e., right? Rigor starts to move.
But the tarp doesn't have to be just for carrying her. It could also be for something else.
Dragging her?
Well, like for example, laying it out to not leave blood all over the place if you're going to do something to somebody. I just think it doesn't.
But she'd be in the house.
No, it could be that she was taken alive and brought somewhere else to do whatever it is someone was going to do to her, and then the tarp could be used there.
Yeah, but why bring it with you into the house? Why not be the second guy with nothing on, with no backpack?
Yeah,
and no
you're thinking like a person, with a functioning frontal lobe and good intelligence. We're also talking about a person who put foliage in front of a camera like that. In other words, we have to step inside of the planning world of this person. And, you're too smart to think like this person.
Wait a minute. Oh, I love it. Could this be the work of a serial killer?
No, unless it was the kind that kills multiple people with cooling off periods just for money, like a hitman kind of serial, like a Richard Wilkinski kind of person. But a sexually motivated one, like most of them are, no, I don't think so. It would just have to be somebody who has done it for money over and over again.
How has live streaming and real-time data changed criminal technology, investigations, and what's the future of that? Well, I think live streaming has brought to the forefront the reality that law enforcement has to adapt to a much more technical savvy public and use it to their advantage. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. There are a large rock left of the house has a tire mark on it per a drone. Okay. Hopefully the feds got that. Good observation. He talked to the neighbors who said CO access road. Okay. Could it be from being hit in the nose causing her to sneeze? Could be.
Certainly.
That would be the consistency as well. Great point. Great point. Love our chat. So smart. These are the smart folks. These are the smart folks. I mean, you'd be surprised. I think all of us can attest to how many times our phone rang and somebody says, dude, I need to tell you something, officer or detective. I don't know if it's related or not, but blah, blah, blah. And you know what? You chase it down and you try to fit. You try to make it happen. What is the likelihood this was a botched kidnapping from someone who recognized NG was related to SG due to recent SG Today shows appearance or both restaurant an opportunity to score? I'm not a big fan of the concept right now that they chose Savannah's mom. Now there could have been an obsession with Savannah, of course, but you know what you would see? You would see that person hanging out at the memorial. You would see that person picking that card up that Annie wrote and becoming a part of that card because now you're part of the family. Because
much higher prevalence of severe mental illness, psychosis, depression, narcissism as a mixture in that type of offender. And what we would probably see is that for months, if not years before, there would have been communication attempts to try to be close to the victim or the daughter.
And this is a person who wouldn't have a conspiracy around them.
Right. Very, very unlikely that is. In fact, I rejected that idea very quickly in thinking about this. Where I think that it matters that Savannah is the daughter is that Savannah is worth a lot of money, that Savannah gets a lot of attention. Those kinds of things might figure into the story, but preoccupation with the mother or Savannah in that kind of way, I don't think so. No, no. It doesn't match what we've seen, and because there is precedent, there are the cases, and we don't see the patterns that tend to be present with that kind of offender.
Yeah, and great point, Dr. Brucato. Chris, would you guys have taken the door back in the day? He has his mouth open in the light, and I've seen DNA smaller than dust used. Something. John, what would you have done?
I'd have seized the door.
Bob?
Even if you didn't seize it, you know something went down at the door. You seize the door.
I agree.
And the mat.
Oh, yeah.
And the map.
The proverbial map.
The proverbial mat. Okay, gentlemen, that was the last one. Gary, tell everybody where they can get your book. And all the links are going to be below in our description. There's John. There it is.
Well, you can get
It's a great book.
Any major bookstore. The only difference is that some people put it in the true crime section and some put it in the psychology section. But the easiest thing to do is just get it on Amazon. I will tell you, because a lot of people ask me if it makes a difference if you get the audiobook. It really does, because in the audiobook, you're not going to get the images, which are horrifying, but they're informative. You don't get the graphs. You don't. In fact, they just deleted passages that make references to what is illustrated, and so you're missing part of the book, in my opinion. So I would just get the hard copy of the book. Be old school and get now you could get the electronic version that will have the images. That's available also, but it's not hard to find. But I appreciate it very much. And I recommend John's books, which are a lot of fun. How many, John, are there going to be in the series?
Of my memoirs, or at this point, 5, but I've also got another book literally after that will be stories. See, I'm not telling stories that I knew about, but didn't. I'm focusing on those I personally participated in. And there's a whole book that can be told about, like and Chris, and I'm certain Bob will remember, the Ditto pursuit and gunfighting. And so I've got lots of writing ahead of me in the future here, and I actually will be done with Bring Out Your Dead by the end of this month. So
wow.
You can look for that. Well, if you don't have a life, which at this point, I've just gone through a winter here, and I just try and focus on finishing the book. And and I want to thank your viewers who have purchased the book, and I hope you enjoy it. And I've had, you have some great questions here, and it's always an honor to be on with you, Chris.
Oh, we love you, John. You know that. You're
John,
awesome.
Somebody in the audience said, if they've never read any of your books, which one should they read first?
I would go back and actually read my teddy bear mysteries. Believe it or not, I mean, I love them. They're set in the world of collectible teddy bears. But if you're talking about my comp books, I'd start with Service with a Sneer, because you need the background, because I share with the reader how I came from an extraordinarily physically abusive household. And in fact, it's a household that Dr. Gary describes in The New Evil, that literally I could have come out as a killer, because it's physically abused, alcohol being abused, and how I became a cop. So, and there's a lot of humor in it. It's not like there's not a lot of bathos involved. I try and tell how I got to this place.
Well, you remember the Executioner song, the Norman Mailer book?
Oh, yes. Let's do it.
Gilmore goes one way and the brother goes another way, right?
Yes. Gary Gilmore.
That's how it goes. I mean, you could be raised in the same circumstances, And I remember when Truman Capote was interviewing, Dick and Perry, up there in Cold Blood.
In Cold Blood, yeah.
With one of them, and he said, it's like we grew up in the same house, but I went out the front door and he went out the back.
Very true.
It's an interesting question. But Chris, have you read John's books?
Oh yeah. Yep.
They're like side-splitting shockingly funny. I mean, the one that you sent to me, John, to read.
Yeah, there's some interesting characters in John's police books.
I've known John, what,
40,
couple weekends.
yeah, 44 years.
And we had a lot of fun times with Bob, myself, and many others. And that's why I want to put this guy up right here. So to answer your question about would we have taken the door, John has taken walls, I've taken walls, Bob's taken walls. But the guy on the right there,
Skip Sperber.
Yeah.
Skip Sperber. Yeah.
This guy is an amazing human being. He's passed.
He's a forensic odontologist.
Yeah.
And so Skipper used to tell us, hey, I think I can match any wound if you have the wherewithal to bring the items down here to the medical examiner's office. Skip did some of the bite work in the Bundy
Yes, indeed.
caper. And it was just an absolute honor. And you'll see that's a young detective there with our mustaches were all mandatory because when you go into stinkers, you take, Vicks and you put it on your mustache. So you're inhaling you're not inhaling the smell of the crime scene. But as John talks about, you can actually smell blood. And in this case here, you'll see that there's an indentation on the wall to sort of go back to your question, would we have taken the door? The answer is yes. But if you see that indentation, there is a 2x4 stud there. You can just barely see it. Okay. But Skip's got the ruler up against it. Well, what you don't see after this is he had the cranium or the top part of the victim, and he placed it in that indentation to a perfect match. And then he's got his camera with his right hand there, and he was asking me to hold up the drywall and the piece of wood. And we got a 100% conviction on the guy that said, I didn't do anything. So this is what gumshoe police work looks like.
Skip was a stellar investigator and
was amazing.
Amazing investigator. Pleasure. I worked several cases with him. A pleasure to work cases with Skip.
Remember, the United Nations asked him to go to a Central American country to investigate bite marks on a bishop who had been removed. And part of the story was that his dog had attacked him, and he went down and said, this is no dog bite, it's a human bite, and was eventually able to link it to somebody connected with this bishop. And so this guy was just an extraordinary intellect.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
Well, this is interesting information. If so, we'd like to look at that. But this is what it's all about. So I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. We're so grateful to each and every one of you out there who support this channel. And
thank you, a simple gale of heart. Thank you much.
And we're getting close to 300,000. Please continue to support us. That's the only thing we ask. So there's Buddy. We need to go to Hawaii. So anyway, biakamai, take care of one another, and we will see you on the next one. Let's go to Hawaii.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me. face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.